Hey everybody, it's Boog Shambi. Welcome to the show.
Okay, we will first check, see who went up
This is my
and
third attempt in the last
who
year at making this video, but it's one of those ones
down.
Today we're talking about America's Samurai, the Nisei. These
Judge went up, Tati stayed, Ramirez went up, Bobby Witt went up, Freeman went up, Cal went up, Skubal went up, Lindor still the same, Zach Wheeler went up, Soto goes down, Will Smith goes up, Pete Crow goes up, Bryce stays the same, Morel goes up, Carroll goes up, Langford, DeGrom, Kale, Joe, Hunter goes up, Hunter Brown goes up, god damn, +4, Brian Wu goes up, now at 86, Ellie gets downgraded, Nathan Eovaldi goes up, Nathan Eovaldi's still playing. Bellinger goes up, he should not be a gold. I'm just saying, he should not be a gold. Soda programs do not have any new programs except for May Spotlight.
Like beef jerky, it doesn't smell like a bunch of dehydrated dog food. It's air dried, it's made here in America. Mushu loves it, and it's pretty much the only thing he'll eat now. It's like all the other fancy dog foods with none of the downsides, right? You don't have to open a can every time you go to feed your dog. You don't have to stick this shit inside your refrigerator. And you can get it as a subscription service, so it just keeps showing up to your house because, at least for me, every time I had dog food on my grocery shopping list, I would always forget that I had to make a trip just for dog food. So it's nice to have additional
Ready?
at the house. So if you want to
One, jump, one, ready, jump, 1, 2, start, jump, 1, 2, ready, 1, 2.
What the attack on Pearl Harbor is.
Back to the top of the order now, and the batter will be Fernando Tatis
begins on December 7th,
Jr.
1941, when the Imperial Japanese attack America at Pearl Harbor. Okay, everybody knows what the attack on Pearl Harbor is. But what almost nobody knows about is the Knee Howe incident that happened directly after the attack on Pearl Harbor that would change the course of history. During the second wave of the attack at Pearl Harbor, America was able to get some of their fighter planes up in the air.
That one inside. And the count is 1-1.
That two-seam fastball is usually coupled with a slider away, and when a hitter's conscious of the pitch in, it's hard for him to cover middle away, and that's where a pitcher can really finish off that batter.
Next offering misses, down 2 balls and a strike.
A small uninhabited Hawaiian island known as Knee Howe. However, he was incorrect. The island actually had 135 inhabitants, 133 of which were native Hawaiians. And then
this one chopped on the ground, but foul.
Pretty good pitch there to take a rip at. He wants to get his arms extended. He likes the ball away from him a little bit, just not able to square it up.
America, so when he first made this emergency landing, everybody was happy to help this guy. They thought he was just, a pilot from a friendly country that needed their help. Then, within a couple of hours, word had reached Knee Howe that America was under attack by the Japanese, at which point the Hawaiians did the appropriate thing. They took him as their prisoner, took away his guns, locked him up, and they were going to hold him to the American government.
Fernando Tatis Jr. to hit here.
What master do you serve? Master do I serve? What am I supposed to say, Jesus?
But for whatever reason, Yoshi and Irene decided that they were sympathetic towards this Japanese pilot, so much so that they were actually going to help him break out of jail,
now it's Fernando Tatis Jr.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
This plan would ultimately be thwarted by the Hawaiians, primarily a man by the name of Ben Kanahele, who was a World War I veteran and rancher. When Ben Kanahele went to stop Shigenori from escaping, Shigenori shot him 3 times, at which point Ben Kanahele proceeds to pick Shigenori up and throw him at a stone wall. His wife then bashes him in the head with a rock while Ben pulls out his hunting knife and slits his throat. Which I cannot stress to you enough is the most Polynesian American shit I have ever heard.
Back to the top of the order.
Play down.
Shot 3 times
will be Fernando
to pick up
Tatis
the armed
Jr.
gunman and throw him at a wall like he's the Incredible Hulk. After that, Yoshi, the Japanese man that was trying to help him escape, would also wind up dead, and his wife Irene would end up being incarcerated for the rest of World War II. So Ben Kanahele saves the day.
Back to the top of the order now.
Fernando
Tatis Jr. to hit
pretty
here.
much all Japanese Americans, right? There was 2 Japanese Americans present, and they elected to side with the Imperial Japanese that were attacking America. And this winds up being one of the main catalysts and excuses for the American government discriminating against American citizens that had Japanese ancestors.
Winning run
By
on
January
base at first.
1942, the Hawaiian National Guard released all of its soldiers that had
Anytime
Japanese
you can get one
ancestry
by a
and
bat
basically
of
just
this
kicked them out
caliber,
of the
especially with
army. Which is
runners
kind of
on,
a big deal because
gotta
at this
give you
point
some
in time, like
confidence out there
40%
that
of the
you can win
Hawaiian
this battle.
population actually had
Oh,
Japanese
this one's
ancestry.
blasted.
Then by February 1942,
It's out of
FDR signed Executive Order 9066, which
That'll
effectively
fire up the
suspended all
dugout.
of the constitutional rights of any Japanese
And the
American, ordered them to
Padres
sell their
walk it off
homes,
for the
sell their
win.
businesses for a much lower value than they were actually worth, and then they were supposed to report to an internment camp for the duration of World War II. With a single pen stroke, 120,000 American citizens lost all of their constitutional rights and went from being a full-fledged American to a prisoner like that. Now, like I already said, I think that is one of the most disgusting things the American government has ever done. However, I do have to get kind of sidetracked because I have a crazy conspiracy theory about this, and it's going to get weird, so bear with me.
Back in Boston, all set for the bottom of the ninth. Now it's Devers at the plate.
Roast this bone. Jesus Christ.
I think that this inspired Star Wars, and just hear me out. The
And
Jedi
that one
and the
fouled
Sith,
off.
you know, the guys with the lightsabers are clearly inspired by samurai. You know, they have the robes, they have the same garb, they have swords,
This guy's
that's the
got
primary
good
weapon.
power with
They're
one
just space
swing, he
samurai.
can
That's
win
all
it
it
for
is.
him.
You've got the
Just a bit
Jedi,
late
which are
on
the
that
good ones,
0-1
and then you've got the
breaking ball.
Sith, which are
0-2
the bad
hole
ones.
now. He's
Similar
going to have to
Japanese
shorten up,
people, you've
tighten
got the
things up
Imperial
if he's going to have
Japanese,
a
which
good
are
at
the bad
bat.
ones, then you have the American Japanese, which are the good ones.
Keeps
But
the
then
at-bat
Chancellor
going with a
Palpatine
foul
comes
ball.
along. He is the leader of the Republic, the president, so to speak. Also worth noting, he's an elderly guy that nobody ever sees standing up. He's always sitting down.
Swung on,
And he
ball
issues
two.
an order to get rid of all the Jedi. He gets rid of all the good
Got one
guys,
back.
just like that. Hey, I know what you're thinking. Chubby electron guy's reaching too far. He's lost his mind.
He
Potentially,
rocketed
okay,
that
but here's
one
the
out of
linchpin of the
here.
entire argument, right? When Emperor Palpatine got rid of the
And
Jedi,
the
he
Red
got rid of the
Sox
good guys. He
walk it
executed
off.
Order 66. When FDR got rid of all the Japanese Americans, he signed Executive Order 9066. I mean, what the fuck are the odds, right?
They're on to me, dude. Those guys are sharp as nails up there. You can't put any...
Hopefully I can get start rolling this tonight.
Sorry. I just wanted to use the lavatory. Still want... Hey, past that.
Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyways, 120,000 Japanese American citizens end up getting thrown in concentration camps inside of America. Shitty, awful, horrible, but
Back
is
here
what
in
happened.
Milwaukee.
In Hawaii,
So
however,
bottom
things
of the
look a little bit
ninth,
different
and now
because
the
a
right
significant
fielder,
portion of
Sal
the Hawaiian
Green.
population was
That
Japanese,
one
and they
finds
didn't
the
throw all
zone.
of them in a
0-1.
concentration camp.
He's a
Otherwise,
bad
it would
ball
crash the
hitter,
entire
so
Hawaiian
even if you
economy.
get him
So,
to chase
a lot of them
pitches
got to kind
outside
of
the
live
zone, he
borderline
still
normal
might
lives.
beat you.
So a lot of the
Not an
Japanese
easy out
Americans that
by
were
any
previously
means.
serving in the National
And
Guard,
here
they got
is
released from
Hoskins.
duty, end up forming what they called the Varsity Victory Volunteers.
And it's fouled
They
away.
petitioned the Hawaiian governor,
One down,
and they were like,
base is
hey,
empty.
look, I
Yeah, that's
understand
fouled
I have
off.
a Japanese ancestry, but I'm not Japanese. I'm an American.
And now the
I
lefty
understand you're not going to let me fight and have a
swings
gun,
through
but
it
I
for
still
the
want to
K.
help with this war effort
And they're
any way
down
I
to
can,
their
because
last
this is
out.
my home, and I want to fight for it. The Hawaiian
Round the
governor
box,
ends up letting
comes
them
up
form this
empty with a
volunteer
swing
order, and
there.
essentially they just start doing
Just
any
missed.
manual labor jobs that they can do that's going to help the war effort. They're stringing out concertina wire, they're digging ditches, they're pouring roads, they're pouring airstrips. They're
Next
doing
offering is
anything
in
and
for a
everything that gets
strike.
asked of them.
One
And this goes on
strike
for months.
away.
And then by June of 1942, the government's like, okay, I get it. You guys are loyal to America. We're going to go ahead. We're going to bring you back into the Army, but you're going to be in a segregated all-Japanese unit being led by white officers. You're going to be known as the 100th Infantry Battalion. So they take 1,500 of these young Japanese-American men that are second-generation Americans, also known as Nisei, and they ship them off to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, which is completely redundant because all of them had already been in the Hawaiian National Guard, and they'd already gone through Army basic training, but that's where they send them to go through it again, and they do it.
John Drill Sergeant! Why did you put that weapon together so quickly, Governor? You told me to, Drill Sergeant.
And while they're there, the Nisei continue to prove that they are 1,000% committed to America, despite the fact that America has given them every reason to not be. And they prove it not with just a general dedication to the task, but while they're actually there, the Army secretly sends in psychologists inside of their command structure to evaluate them, to see if they're lying, to see if they're actually dedicated to America. And all of the psychologists are like, yeah, these guys are 100% legit. They mean it when they say they're here to fight for America. On top of that, they go above and beyond when 5 Nisei end up getting awarded the Soldier's Medal because there was some civilians that went out on a frozen lake and the ice shattered and they were going to drown. And these young Nisei went out and saved these civilians. In addition to that, 26 of them volunteered to go be bait for attack dogs when America was trying to train dogs to be able to sniff out Japanese people to the Pacific. They were doing anything and everything that was asked of them, regardless of how shitty of a job it was. And somewhere along the way, it becomes clear to the chain of command, like, okay, these guys are legit. We're going to give them guns and we're going to send them off into combat. But
so next to the plate for Tampa Bay, Christopher Morel.
We're not going to send them into the Japanese theater for a
There's the strike. Really good cutter that he's able to front door and back door. That pitch is devastating.
And that's the strike.
So, A, we're going to protect them in that fashion, but B, we also don't want Japanese Americans really participating in the Pacific theater in a combat role, because if the American soldiers that aren't Japanese get accustomed to seeing Japanese guys in an American uniform, eventually the Japanese could figure out, like, hey, we're going to start taking uniforms off and get GIs, we're going to dress up as Americans, infiltrate their ranks, and then wreak havoc behind friendly lines.
To be honest right now,
back here in Miami, on the fourth, and stepping in for the Rays, Jonathan Aranda. Swings and misses. That's strike one.
At one point, they send him off to Camp Shelby, Mississippi for advanced infantry.
And he gets that fastball by him upstairs.
He's going to form an even larger all-Japanese Nisei regiment.
Got him looking. And he's registered 3 Ks in this one.
4,500 volunteers to be in the 442nd Infantry Regiment, which is kind of a big ask from a community of people that you've just taken all of their civil rights away and then thrown them in a prison. And not only do they end up getting 4,500 volunteers, they get over 10,000, which is absolutely insane. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you incarcerated my entire family for no other reason
on the corner for a strike, and it's all
wrong. Fight in a world war for you, I would probably tell you to go fuck yourself. So all 10,000 of these dudes are far bigger men than me. Speaking of bigger men than me, one of the volunteers is a young man by the name of Daniel Inouye, who is currently in med school trying to be a doctor.
Back here in Low Depot Park, as we go to the top of the fourth. And now Jonathan Aranda. That's off the inside corner. 1-0.
Hospitals for months while also going to med school ever since Pearl Harbor happened. So when he goes to the draft board tells him, like, no, you're too valuable where you're at. You're going to go off and become a doctor. On top of that, you're already doing a bunch of work for us stateside. We don't want to send you off to combat. So he's like, okay, I'll be right back. He leaves, drops out of med school, tells the hospital he's not coming back to help anymore, and then goes back to the draft board and is like, I just quit my job and I dropped out of med school. Fucking send me. So they end up sending him, and he ships off with the rest of the 442nd Infantry Regiment for basic training 2 days later. While the 442nd ship off and get their training started, the 100th Infantry Battalion is finishing up their advanced training in Camp Shelby, Mississippi. They are then sent off to North Africa, and they get there in September of 1943. So they land in Oran, which is a major port city in Algeria, and from there they get attached to the 34th Infantry Division, aka Red Bulls, in particular the 133rd Infantry Regiment, aka the Iron Men, which, cool part, that's my old unit. Not so cool part, the commander is kind of a dickhead because when he is a greeting speech to the 100th Infantry Battalion, he openly refers to them as the guinea pigs from Pearl Harbor. And not that I'm trying to defend Commander Mark Clark for calling them guinea pigs. I'm absolutely not. But to put it into a little bit of context, a lot of people have a lot of doubts that the Nisei soldiers are going to be effective on the battlefield. Okay, the average Nisei soldier at this point in time was between 5'4" and 5'6" and weighed somewhere between 120 and 140 pounds. And they just got attached to the 34th Infantry Division, which is based out of the Midwest. Okay, the 34th Infantry Division, by and large today, but especially back then, was almost nothing but 185-pound corn-fed white boys with machine guns that grew up on a farm. So they're looking at these dudes with a smaller stature like, what do you guys really think you're going to do on this battlefield? Why are you even here?
Look at that.
The all-new 2025 Equinox.
All right, let it go here.
And
here's O'Neal Cruz.
If the Nisei want respect, they're going to have to prove themselves. And from the second they step foot in combat, that's exactly what they did.
On that
they started kicking ass nest right outside of Salerno, Italy, when they first saw combat. For their first week of combat, they drove the Germans back.
I know it's obvious, but you just can't miss Cruz when he's on the field. I've never seen a player like him. I mean, he's 6'7", weighs 220 pounds, and is the tallest shortstop in the history of Major League Baseball.
Late with the swing there.
Instead of letting the hitter get his arms extended, tied him up a little bit, slightly up, slightly in.
Battling here as he fouls it away.
When the Des Moines Register, the biggest newspaper back home in Iowa, wrote an article being critical of the Nisei being attached to the 34th Infantry Division, the members of the 34th Infantry Division wrote a letter to their editor. And I quote, "We're Iowa boys of the 34th Division. We have fought side by side with boys of Japanese descent. We know plenty of folks that call themselves Americans that have done much less to prove they give a hang about their country. There have been times when these Japanese, as you call them, have saved many lives
with that
only because they have proven themselves better Americans than some that were not of Japanese descent."
Swings through that one for strike two.
So not only are the Nisei of the 100th Infantry beating the Nazis, they're also winning over hearts and minds left and right, and they're just getting warmed up.
Really had some run and finished a little upper end just on the edge.
The 100th and
that's
the rest of the Allied forces have advanced to North Africa, and they have come up the German Gustav line. The Gustav line is effectively the line in the sand that Germany is on, where they are not going to let the Allied forces advance past this point. It is heavily fortified. They have the high ground. They have all the advantages, and they are going to fight tooth and nail to not let Allied forces penetrate through this line into Europe. And one of the most vital areas of the Gustav line is where the 100th Infantry is at.
Back here in Philadelphia, and now the first baseman, Spencer Horwitz.
Humongous hill overlooking the town is an old monastery that the Germans have turned into a massive fortress. And not only that, they went and chopped down all the trees on the hills and the ground in front of the monastery, knocked down all the buildings. So there's absolutely nothing to provide cover or concealment in case they assault. So you're pretty much running through an open field uphill into German machine gun fire if you try to take this position. And that's exactly what America's going to do anyways, because it's the only option. And because the 100th Infantry, which I'm now going to refer to by their nickname, the One Puka Puka, because it's easier for me to say, has developed a reputation for being both fearless and willing to take on any challenge, they are selected to lead the first assault on Monte Cassino. January 17th, 1944 at midnight, Alpha and Charlie Company of the One Puka Puka are going to take off, advance up this hill. They fight all the way up this hill and make it to the outer stone walls of this monastery, where they get pinned down and they continue to fight all night long. They're taking heavy casualties. They're running out of ammunition. It is straight up not a good time. They need more ammo. But now it's broad daylight out, so they're going to have to send in reinforcements. So they send in Bravo Company of the One Puka Puka. But if they go out in broad daylight up this hill with no cover, they're going to get absolutely mowed down. So they drop a bunch of smoke. Bravo Company starts advancing through the smoke, and then the wind shifts and blows all the smoke away, and they get just utterly destroyed.
Here comes Cody
Bellinger. Of the 187 men of Bravo Company, only 14 of them end up making it to the wall. After taking that many casualties and running out of ammunition and having fought all night already, they are finally ordered to withdraw. A couple of weeks later, the Allied forces launch another major attack on Monte Cassino and the Gustav line. This time, the One Puka Puka is ordered to take Castle Hill, a neighboring hill to the monastery that's of vital importance to be able to cut off support. The Nisei actually managed to fight their way up the hill and take the top of the hill, and they managed to hold it for 4 straight days, fighting their asses off. But then eventually, the flanks of the 34th Infantry end up collapsing, and they're about to get completely surrounded and stuck on top of this hill, at which point they are ordered to withdraw again. By this point, the 100th Infantry Battalion has lost 50% of their men, and they are ordered to the rear where they can recuperate and pick up reinforcements to replenish the ranks. People start referring to them as the Purple Heart Battalion and the Little Men of Iron, a play on the 133rd Infantry Regiment's Iron Men.
Bellinger up to hit.
After a brief recuperation, they are then sent to a different spot on the Gustav line near Anzio, and this spot of the line is essentially World War I.
Baselock here really gives them an opportunity to control this ballgame. You don't want that other team to think they have a shot, and a knock here would be a big
fight all
blow.
night and they sleep all day. The One Puka Puka starts referring to it as Dracula days. They sleep during the day, they draw blood at night. While the One Puka Puka is there is a third major attack on Monte Cassino by other Allied forces.
Here's
that
Cody
also
Bellinger.
fails. At this point, the chain of command's getting restless. They're pissed. They need to break through the German Gustav line, and eventually they come to the conclusion, fuck it, we're just going to pick a point where we're going to attack, and we're going to hit that singular point along the line with absolutely everything we've got. The problem is the Germans have massive tank units in the area too, and they need to know where those tank units are, because if they decide to attack at a singular point, and that's the point where there's a bunch of German tanks, it's not going to go that
That one fouled off.
So they need to figure this out. Otherwise, this is going to be a humongous gamble. At this point, a member of the One Puka Puka steps forward and goes to the chain of command because he's got an idea. And that man is Lieutenant Young Oak Kim. And Young Oak Kim is already a complete badass. He's already earned a Silver Star and a Purple Heart, and he's coming to the chain of command with this crazy idea.
Base is all loaded up. Cody Bellinger stepping in now for the Yankees.
One Puka Puka that's not Japanese. And that's because he's an officer, and typically the officers were white men, but in Young Oak Kim's case, he was Korean. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, the racial tensions between Japanese people and Koreans during World War II was pretty high, considering the Japanese had invaded Korea.
You can learn a lot about a guy by how he handles these pressure situations.
With the One Puka Puka, the chain of command pulled Young Oak Kim aside, and they were like, hey, we understand that Japan is invading Korea. There's racial tensions between Japanese and Korean people. If you want, we can give you different orders and have you attached to a different unit. To which Young Oak Kim replied, and I quote, there are no Japanese or Koreans here. We're Americans, and we're fighting for the same cause. So Young Oak Kim is just a complete badass. He goes to the chain of command, and he's like, look, you need somebody to go behind enemy lines and figure out where these tank units are. Here's my plan. You guys keep attacking at night with these major formations. It's obvious they know we're coming at night. Why don't you send me one other guy behind enemy lines in broad daylight? I will sneak back there. I will capture a German soldier, drag him back. We can interrogate him and figure out where these tank units are, and then we'll know where to attack.
So bases all loaded up. Cody Bellinger now at the plate.
This is a prison in a
Normally, I don't have a problem hitting a home run with Bellinger, but
and that one hammered.
As the warden,
Soto moving back for it.
thank you, Bellinger. I just had to say I don't have problems.
Okay, now right out of the gate, that's kind of a stupid idea, right? You're really going to go behind no man's land, capture an enemy soldier, drag him back without getting caught and killed. But the Allied forces are desperate, so they're like, you know what? It might work, and if it works, it's not that stupid. They give him the green light, and he sets off to do it. May 16th, Lieutenant Kim and PFC Irving Akahoshi crawl through no man's land through an open wheat field in broad daylight, crawl all the way behind enemy lines where they find a German unit that had been up all night manning their machine guns. They then stalk them further behind enemy lines
and
watch them
Flores
as they eat dinner, breakfast, whatever they're eating at this point in time. Watch them eat and then fall asleep. And then when two dudes go, be the guards, they stalk them, and then they end up sitting there and waiting until they fall asleep, and they wake them up by shoving their guns in their mouths so they can't scream. Kim and Akahoshi then take their two German prisoners, smuggle them back through no man's land, behind friendly lines, turn the prisoners over, they get interrogated, they gather the intel as to where the German tank units are, and define the battle plans for the entire Allied advance. 48 hours later, after setting off on his mission, the Allied forces launched their academies on Casino Falls on May 18th. Lieutenant Young Oak Kim is then awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest award in the American military. And as he's getting that pinned on his chest, Commander Mark Clark looks down and sees his first lieutenant rank, and then points over to a captain nearby and is like, you, Mayor. Captain approaches, he rips the captain rank off of this guy and pins Lieutenant Young Oak Kim as a captain as well. Cutting back to the rest of the One Puka Puka over at Anzio, they also coordinated the attack with the Fourth Battle of Montecasino, so that if Montecasino fell, they were also going to launch their offensive, hopefully driving the Germans back, so that they broke the Gustav line in two locations. That way, they could advance forward and in and either crush the Germans in the middle, or the Germans would be forced to retreat. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And not only that, the One Puka Puka was the lead element of the
swings here and drives one well left field, way back, and you can't forget it.
One Puka Puka is out front, and as they get near Rome, they're like 15 miles outside of Rome. They are going to be the first Americans to set foot in a major European capital as the Allied forces capture it. They are ordered to stand down as they peel off the side of the road and just kind of hang out in the ditch, and they don't know what's going on. And then other American units start catching up, and then they keep marching, and they keep marching into Rome. And now the One Puka Puka is not the first into Rome, and it dawns on them, they pulled us off to the side because they didn't want a bunch of Japanese dudes being the first Americans to capture a major European capital. They never even got to set foot in Rome. They were ordered to go link up with the new Nisei unit, the 442nd Infantry Regiment, and they would be absorbed into that unit now instead. From here, the One Puka Puka still kind of retained its identity as the 100th Infantry Battalion, but they are just now one of 3 battalions inside of the 442nd Infantry Regiment. And their new unit slogan is one of the best and most famous slogans in military history: Go for broke, which is a Hawaiian slang term that basically means I'm going all in. I'm pushing all my chips into the table, because that's exactly how these guys felt. They're all in this shitty situation where their former homeland is attacking them and their new home seemingly doesn't want them. So they're picking their side and they're going all in. From here, the 442nd is ordered to head north and take over a town called Suvareto, and this is going to be the first major military operation that they get to conduct by themselves. This is the ultimate point that they get to prove themselves, where they can say, we did that alone and nobody else helped. And they do it with surgical precision. They end up taking the 2nd and 3rd battalions of the 442nd Infantry Regiment, and they attack the front of the town, and then they send the 1st Battalion, the 1 Puka Puka, around the backside to flank their retreat. Now, 2nd and 3rd Battalion, this is the first time they've seen combat. These guys are green. They just got out of training. So the Germans actually end up launching a semi-successful counterattack, but the 1 Puka Puka, 1st Battalion, sees it happening, and they instantly, without orders, adjust, go through, and they flank the Germans from the side, completely crushing them and taking over the entire town. From here, the 34th Infantry Division continues to advance deeper into Europe, and the 442nd alongside them is credited with over 1,100 confirmed kills and capturing 331 German prisoners of war. They then come up on another German defensive line where the Germans have dug themselves in, called Hill 40, which they end up nicknaming Little Casino because of how hard the Germans resisted, and the town of Castanella. 442nd leads the assault on Little Casino because, like it or not, they are now pretty much America's premier fighting force when the situation is running uphill into enemy gunfire and winning anyways. They battled the Germans for 3 days straight and end up taking Hill 140, aka Little Casino, which is ironic because their entire motto is about gambling big and going for broke, and every single time they manage to win.
New conquest out. Oh my god, thank you.
The 442nd goes on R&R for a little while, then they get called back in. They are going to go into
Yes,
France.
I won't have to buy. I won't have to buy them. I can get fucking Scott roll in this game.
They travel 500 miles by foot and rail into France. They link up
I
with
ain't
Texans,
fucking get Scott roll in today.
Now,
Nice.
combat from here, the terrain's completely different. They're in the Vosges Mountains. This combat is brutal. They're in heavily wooded forests, and every time they have to take a hill with Germans on top of it, the Germans retreat, run down the hill, run right up another hill, and then they have to fight at the high ground again. It's absolutely miserable. And the first thing they need to do is they need to take over a town called Broyers, and in order to do that, they have to take over all the hills surrounding the town. There's 4 big ones, A, B, C, and D. The 442nd is in charge of taking over all the hills, while the rest of the 36th Infantry goes in and takes over the town. 442nd goes to work, they do their thing, they run uphill into German machine gun fire, take the hills anyways on A, B, and C. But on D, the Germans are putting up a hell of a fight. This battle goes on for hours. It's just a seesaw battle of they drive up the hill, they get driven back down, they drive up, they get driven back down. It's yard by yard brutal combat. They're taking heavy casualties. There's finally a lull in the battle. There's not a wave going up. And normally, all the combat they've been experienced to at this time, the Germans have been pretty respectful of the rules of war, right? When you're not launching an attack, you send out the medics go out there, they pick up the casualties, they pick up the dead, they bring them back, they get everybody taken care of. You extend the enemy the same courtesy. That's usually how it's gone at this point. But now, the Germans are getting desperate because D-Day has already happened. Shit is hitting the fan, and they are no longer playing by the rules. The 442nd doesn't know that, so they send the medics out. The medics go, they lay out the litter, they grab a guy that's been shot, still alive, probably going to survive. His name's Abe Ohama. They get him on the litter, and they start carrying him back, and then the Germans open up on the medics and the wounded with machine gun fire. Abe Ohama, while he was on the litter, was struck again.
Chet.
And immediately killed. Seeing this, the rest of the 442nd, unprompted without orders, Abe Ohama, while he was on the probably going to survive, his name's Abe Ohama. They get him on the litter and they start carrying him back, and then the Germans open up on the medics and the wounded with machine gun fire. Abe Ohama, while he was on the litter, was struck again and immediately killed. Seeing this, the rest of the 442nd, unprompted, without orders, pissed off, gets on their feet and charges the hill while screaming, takes the entire hill, killing 50 Germans and capturing another 7 as POWs. The 442nd has just conducted what is very reminiscent of a Japanese banzai charge, and it's practice that they're going to need for later. From here, the rest of the 36th Infantry goes in, they take over Bruyères, and the 442nd renames Hill D Ohama's Hill. At this point, the 442nd has been fighting nonstop for weeks on end. So
And
they're
now
finally
the center
sent back to the
fielder,
rear
Willie
for R&R.
Mays.
And the second they get there, it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. They immediately get told there's an emergency.
This
They
one
got to turn back
lifted in the
around
air,
and
left
head back to the
field.
front line. The commander of the 36th
Andujar
Infantry,
makes
General
the grab,
Dahlquist,
one away.
somehow got placed in
Mike
charge of an entire
Yastrzemski up
infantry
here.
division, and it
Just
never
pulled
actually
off of
been
it a
in
little
combat.
bit right
In addition
there.
to
That
men
front
that served
shoulder
underneath him
coming
said he
open
seemed to
instead
care
of
more
staying
about being the
closed.
first unit into Germany
Oh,
than he
now
did
this
about
one's
actually taking
high
care of
and
his guys
deep,
and
way
keeping them
back
alive.
there,
These
on
factors
its
would culminate
way,
and come to a head on
gone.
October 24th, 1944, when he would order the 1st Battalion
And
of the
just like that,
141st
they're out
Infantry
front.
Regiment
It's
to
1-0.
overextend into German lines, and they
Willie
would then
Thomas
be
stands
engulfed
in.
and completely surrounded by an entire
That's out
German
to center
division.
field.
To put that into
Butler
perspective, if you don't
on the
know
move.
military unit sizes, that's about
No
300
trouble
men
here,
surrounded by
puts it
about
away for the
6,000.
out.
So while the
And
442nd is
they're
making
2
their way back
down.
to the front lines, General
Now it's
Dahlquist
the
orders
second
the 1st
baseman,
and 2nd
Tyler
Battalion of the
Fitzgerald.
141st Infantry to go in and save their buddies. They go, they try fighting, they end up getting pushed back.
Swing
And here's the
and a
kicker.
miss.
The Germans
Strike
just
one.
think the
This is a
Americans
batter
are trying to
who
break through the
clearly
line.
performs
They
better
don't
in
know
day
that the
games. I don't
Americans
know
are
why,
freaking
but
out
his
because
numbers
there's an
generally
entire
back it
battalion
up.
surrounded.
There's a
They have
swing
no
and a drive.
idea
Going
the 1st
back.
Battalion is up above them on a ridge. But from the
Onto
American
the track,
perspective, they
and
think
he makes the
obviously the
tackle.
Germans know that. So they're like, oh shit, we can't punch through the line to go save them. We better start airdropping in ammunition, food, and water so they can stay up on that ridge and fight as long as
Back
possible.
here with
So
my pal
they go
Siggy.
and try to
Today's
airdrop
starting
a bunch of
pitcher,
supplies
Mick
to them.
Abel.
The airdrop gets
It's
caught by
always
the
interesting
wind
to see
and goes
how
off
he
course.
utilizes
And then
all
the
of his
Germans are
pitches
like,
and
wait a
how
minute,
many of
why the
those
fuck
he
are
has
the
a good
Americans
feel for
airdropping
on that
supplies
given
to
day.
us?
When he's right,
Oh shit,
he's really able to
we
keep
have an
hitters
entire
guessing, and
battalion
all of his
surrounded.
stuff seems to be coming out of the same arm slot, the
So
same
now they
tunnel,
start
and
attacking
that
the
can
Lost
make
Battalion
life
2.
very
The
difficult for
442nd
his
makes it to the
opponents.
front line on October 28th. Now, in hindsight, some of the
Swing
pieces
and a
they
miss,
were
struck
sent in
him out.
particular because they were deemed expendable,
batter
and they
down,
all died, it
Zach
wouldn't be that big of
Geloff.
a deal. However,
And
a lot
a
of the
first
other
pitch fastball
Nisei
is
like to
in
believe
for a
they were sent
strike.
in because they were the best. So the 442nd goes in, and it is absolutely
Yeah, big
the
swing and a
Germans have
miss.
minefields all over
One
the
out,
fucking place.
bases
They have
empty.
fortified machine gun positions. So the Lost Battalion's up here, the 442nd
Strike
has to
three,
approach
and
from
that's
here.
2 in a
There's
row.
the German line in between,
Brent Rooker
and then off
up
to the
next for the
side
A's.
is Hill 617 that also has a bunch of Germans on it, overlooking the approach to the German line. So they're just getting
Swing through
machine
that
gun
one.
fire and
0-1.
mortars rained down on them from absolutely everywhere. For the first 2 days, the 442nd advances like a couple hundred
for a
yards
strike.
every time they peek out from behind a tree or stick their head up out of a foxhole. Anytime they leave cover, they're getting shot. They can't move. They're completely pinned down.
Welcome
After
back,
2
and we've
days of
got a
being
new arm
essentially
on the mound to
paralyzed
start
on
the
battlefield,
second.
the 442nd,
Tyler
the
Ferguson.
Nisei
Just trying
decide
to
they're
keep
going to
this
live
one
up to their
close
motto.
here, and this
Go
is
for
where a
broke. They're just
bullpen
going to
can give
fucking
their
send
players a
it.
chance
Here's the
to
plan. They
fight
got 3
back into the
battalions.
game.
They're going to send one
Bryce
of them up to
Eldridge.
Hill
The
617.
leadoff
They're going to
batter
take that
as
hill,
he swings
wipe the
through for
Germans off
strike
the top
one.
of it. Then they're going to come back down the hill, rejoin the other 2 battalions.
That's a
and then
real
they're
nice
gonna launch
cutter
a
right there.
full-on
This
assault
guy
that
can
penetrates
struggle
the German
with the
line and save
inside
Texas.
pitch
Third
at
battalion
times,
gets
so
the
I'd
order.
say
They're
that's
going to
pretty
launch their attack
effective
on Hill
if you
617
can
first,
continue
at
to
which
command
point
it
the
on that
3rd
side of the
battalion
plate.
commander
Butler,
grabs his Colt
long
45
run,
pistol and says, okay,
snags
boys,
another run.
let's go.
And there's one away.
Nobody moves.
Nothing instills
Nobody
more
wants to get out of their
confidence in a
foxhole or
team
poke
than
their
a
head out
center
from behind
fielder
their
who
tree.
makes
If
a
they
great
get
play
up,
like
they're going to
that
get
on
shot.
the
This
run.
is
They
absolutely
can
crazy.
feed off the
After that, a
energy he
couple of
brings
moments go
just
by,
from his
probably the
playmaking
longest
abilities.
couple of moments
Orlando
in human
Cepeda
history.
in the
Just
box
dead
with
quiet.
one away as
Nobody
he
wants
takes
to
ball
move.
one.
And eventually, second
Swings
lieutenant
through that
Edward
one.
Davis, the last officer in his company, stands up and gets on his feet as all the other Nisei are
Fastball
looking
is
at him like he's
outside.
crazy. And he turns to his highest-ranking NCO, Sergeant Kohashi, and asks him, doesn't order him, he asks him,
And
will you
that
go
is
with him?
downstairs.
Sergeant
And that's
Kohashi
ball
leaps
3.
up onto his feet, screams a battle cry, and starts running up the hill. And all of the other Nisei do the exact same thing as they have a full frontal assault up this hill. Some of the men even sarcastically scream onside, both making fun of the Japanese that do this and making fun of the situation as a whole. Literally being a smartass in the face of death. They take heavy casualties, but within an hour, they've cleared all the Germans off the top of Hill 617. They then split up that battalion and send some of the companies back down to rejoin the other two battalions as they begin their assault towards the German line. And those companies that come down from the hill bring the same energy with them, and they launch another bonsai charge straight at the German line. Worth noting, one of the men that was in this charge was Daniel Inouye. Remember the kid we talked about earlier that dropped out of med school to go be part of the 442nd? He's in this charge going in to rescue the lost battalion. And as he's charging towards the German line, he gets shot in the chest.
Strikeouts in a row.
But he carries $2 silver in his front breast pocket for good luck, and they literally deflect the bullet and save his life. The 442nd then proceeds to fight and break through the German line. And what happens next is probably one of the coolest moments in human history. Cutting back to the Lost Battalion, they've been surrounded and fighting for their lives for the past 5 days. They're starving, they're dehydrated, they're low on ammunition. And there's this 19-year-old Texan kid in his defensive perimeter with his gun pointed outward, just waiting for the Germans to come and get him. There's fog, there's smoke, he can't see shit, and off in the distance he sees a silhouette approaching, and it's getting closer, and it's getting closer, but the silhouette's not shooting at him, so he doesn't shoot at them. And as it gets closer, he can start to see the person through the smoke, and it's a Japanese guy in an American uniform, Private First Class Matt Sakamoto. And as he gets closer, he stops. And Matt Sakamoto and this young Texan kid are looking at each other, and this Texas kid's lip starts quivering, and he starts tearing up. He's just had his life saved by this Nisei soldier. And then Matt Sakamoto, in the coolest thing ever, just reaches in his pocket, pulls out a package of Lucky Strike cigarettes, one for himself, and goes,
out of him right here. Got to do his best to keep the score
right where it is. A couple seconds after that, the rest of the Nisei come walking through the smoke, and they rescue the Lost Battalion. 64 men of the Lost Battalion were killed in combat. 211 of them were saved by the 442nd. To save those men, the 442nd sustained 800 casualties, 120
Seems like he got exactly what he was looking for right there.
And it's at this point that a rational person that maybe never served in the military would ask, is that even worth it? Should they have went in there to rescue them if it cost that much? The answer is unequivocally yes. And it's not because the Nisei were expendable or that they were worth less than the Texans. It's because nobody's expendable. When you join the United States Army, when you become a soldier, they make you say the Soldier's Creed over and over again ad nauseum. And in the Soldier's Creed, it says, I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen cop. And those aren't just words that they make you say because they sound good. No, it's a promise to the person to the left and the right of you that no matter how bad shit gets, we're going to come to get you because you're one of us. You're not just some number on a spreadsheet that we can plug into a mathematical calculation and determine if you're worth saving or not. No,
he's already homered here in this one.
And we're coming to fucking get you.
Goddamn right.
And there's never been a better embodiment of this principle than the 442nd rescuing the Lost Battalion. Because not only did they live up to the ideal of you're one of us, we're coming to get you no matter what, they also, in doing so, proved that they are one of them. The Nisei, the outsiders, the Japanese that nobody can trust, proved irrefutably that they're not Japanese, they're not outsiders, they're just Americans. They're one of us.
And we're back. Bottom of the inning. Here's the center fielder, Lawrence Butler. Fastball for a strike. Pitch misses there, and 1-1. That's to third. Thompson handles this one. Tosses across the first. One gone.
Okay, now finally, after getting pulled off the corner
right there, batter fighting to get there, just rolled over it,
they are
got the
then
ground
finally
ball.
sent to Southern France where they can actually have some R&R. And from November till March, they're on a security detail that's relatively low impact. They get the rest, recuperate, they get their ranks replenished, and this is referred to as the Champagne Campaign.
That
then
one's
in April
down the
1945,
line,
the Allied forces finally make it to the German Gothic Line. Their last ditch effort of defenses inside of it. It is heavily fortified, and like everything else the Germans made, it's
like a
believed to
pinch
be
hitter for the A's. Gio Urshela. He comes to the plate in a huge spot in this
the
one.
Allied forces called up the
Can't get
18th. They
there.
bring in
Should
the
be extra
442nd.
bases.
Nothing has fucking stopped these guys yet.
And the double puts the tying run in scoring position with 2.
They are assigned to attack one of the mountain's strong points.
One. Ready, jump. One.
The most
Two.
part, that's
Ready,
the
one.
442nd is going to attack.
Ready, one.
The reason the chain of command
Two.
did this is
Jump.
they wanted to use
One.
the 442nd as a diversionary
Ready,
attack.
one.
Right? They're going to have the 442nd
Two.
attack
Jump.
super strong point.
Star. Jump.
Oh, that started and ended pretty quickly. No messing around right there.
Really important at bat coming up now.
Wilson up to bat next. Lays off for a ball.
They're going to be able to
Just
attack
missed.
the center part in the Gothic line and punch through. However, nobody told the
Foul off down the
442nd
right
that, so the
side.
442nd treats it not as a diversionary attack, but as a main attack.
That one
and they
lifted to
punch
left.
through the strongest point
And
with
it
reinforcements
Headed
anyways
for
in
the
a
plate.
single day.
He'll score. It's an RBI single.
And during that attack on
Here
April
tie
1st,
it
1945,
So
the main
2 down.
character that's been
Zach
there all
Geller.
along
Up next
would
for the
finally
A's.
emerge.
There's the
Daniel
strike.
Inouye, the 18-year-old kid
Wilson
that dropped
leads
out of
off
medical
first
school
with
to
2
put his
down to the
dreams of
inning.
becoming a surgeon on
Swing
to
and a
go
miss.
off and fight
Yeah,
for
the
his
count is
country.
0-2.
Daniel
If you're a
Inouye,
base runner,
the
you
guy that
got to
helped
stay
save
dialed
the
in
Lost
here and look for
Battalion and had his
anything in
life
the
saved
dirt.
by
Try your
silver
best to get
dollar
in the
when
scoring
he was shot
position.
in the chest,
Out
and
towards
ended up
right
getting
center
promoted
field.
in the
Mays
field
on his
to lieutenant
horse.
and was now
Got
leading an
it.
entire
Nice.
platoon. During the attack on the Gothic line, Daniel
And
Inouye's
welcome
platoon
back to
gets
the
pinned
ballpark.
down by
New
3
inning
German
getting
machine
started
gun
at
nests
the
with
plate. Willie
MG-42s, the
Adames.
most terrifying machine gun of World
Ortúñez
War II.
back
With
to
his
work.
entire company pinned
On
down,
the
Daniel
line.
decides that he's going to live up to the unit
And
motto
that should
of
be
Built
extra
for Broken.
bases.
He's going to do some
And it
gangster
gets
shit.
by him.
Advancing
The
by
run
himself,
scores
he
from
gets shot in the
second and
stomach,
a 2-1
fights through
ball
it,
game
gets to
now.
the German machine gun
Mission
nest, hits it with
accomplished
the
there
grenade,
as he picks up
blows
the
it up,
RBI to give him the
immediately
lead.
shifts to go
Great
to the
hands
next
on that
German
swing to
machine
take
gun
the
nest,
inside
makes
pitch
it
and
all the way
drive it
there,
into the gap for the
throws
double.
another grenade in that
Easy
one,
to spin
takes
off
out
a
the
pitch
Germans
like
there
that,
as
Boog,
well.
and
He then
to pull
crawls
that
up to
thing
the
foul,
third
but that
German
was
machine
perfect.
gun nest, gets within 10 yards, grabs his grenade, pulls the pin. He's just holding down the spoon, winds back to throw it,
Man, it's
and the
second.
German inside the nest
Fouled
shoots him
off.
with
He
an
was late.
anti-personnel grenade that hits him directly in the elbow. He was so close that the grenade didn't have time to arm itself, and it is just
On the
the
ground to
blunt
the
force
left.
trauma of a
And
massive grenade
foul
flying at him
ball.
that severs the majority of his arm. His men immediately leap up to help him, but he screams at them to stay under cover
Next
because
pitch
he's
way
worried
upstairs.
that arm that
See if
he's
you
not
can
in
go
control of
upstairs a little
anymore
bit.
is
Make
going to
sure you
relax
miss
and
up
let
and
go
out
of the
of the
spoon
zone
on that
since you're heading
grenade
to count
and
1,
kill
2.
him and even
Don't
more of
miss
his men.
in the
So
zone
he
because that's
orders
where
him
you
to
get
stay
hurt.
back. In his own words, and I quote, "I looked at my right hand and it was gone. The grenade was still there, clenched in the
Kicks and
fist,
deals.
and suddenly wasn't a part of me anymore.
Struck him
I pried it out
looking.
with my left hand.
Bryce Eldridge
That grenade
getting
hits
ready
its
to
target,
hit.
and Daniel
Wide to
Inouye
center
has
his
just
first
taken
time.
out
He's
the
0 for
third
1.
German machine gun nest, both left-handed
And that is out of
and
play.
single-handedly.
One out, the runner at
He
second
then gets
here
to
in
his feet
extra
and
innings.
continues advancing on the German position, killing at least one more German with his Thompson submachine gun
Swing and a
before
high
getting
fly
shot in
ball
the leg
right
and
field.
collapsing to the ground unconscious. He then
got
wakes
it.
back up,
Runner
flat on
tags
his
at
back,
second.
looking up at his men
And
who
he's
are
up to
looking
third
down at
safely
him, and he
with
hits
2
him with
gone.
the hardest line in military history, and I
Orlando
quote,
Cepeda
"Nobody
digs in
called
now.
off the war."
Fly to left
Literally
his
telling his
first
dudes,
time.
quit worrying about me and assault the fucking objective.
Boys, we're gonna end this fight.
And as if that wasn't gangster enough, Daniel Inouye is then rushed to the rear where he receives
2 outs
emergency medical
and 1
treatment
in
and
scoring
has to get his
position.
arm amputated in the field completely sober. He had already received too much morphine in the field. They couldn't give him any more
Swing
without
and a
killing
base
him.
hit.
And
In
they don't
comes
have
some
anesthesia on
insurance
the
as
front
the
lines
runner
of World War
scores for
II.
third.
So they just
It's
had to
an
cut it off while
RBI
he was
single,
awake.
and
While
they
that's
lead
going
by
on,
2.
Inouye's men and the
Comes
rest
through
of the
with the
442nd
RBI.
go
Pitchers
on
on
a
the
German
outside didn't go the other way with it, but still a nice job of using the big part of the field to find a hole. No way he hits it that well if he hooks around the baseball bat.
lines. They're forcing Germans to surrender left and right. The 442nd is advancing so fast that American
Butler
supply
makes
lines
the
can't even
catch,
keep up, and
and that
they're
is
forced to
that.
operate on whatever they confiscate from the Germans that they kill or surrender to them. Then on May 2nd, 1945, the German forces inside of Italy surrender. 5 days after that, May 7th,
Ready to go,
1945,
bottom
all
4.
of Germany
Now it's the right
surrenders,
fielder,
and
Brent
World War II,
Rooker.
the
Here, the first offering a
442nd
fastball
is
for a
over.
strike.
As a pitcher, you know the runner on second is ready to push things with his speed.
Excuse me.
Base hit's probably going to be a big run, so you really have to execute on the mound.
High fly ball lifted into the air right field. And it's got to play a foul ball.
Approximately 18,000 men fought in 442nd
Ground ball right side, and it's just foul. That was close.
them the most decorated unit in U.S. military history for their size and tenure. A few of those medals
Strike
include
3,
8
got him
presidential unit
swinging.
citations, which
And
is
he's
like
up to
the Medal
7
of Honor
strikeouts.
for a military unit, and they earned 5 of
Langoliers
them
at the plate
in a
for the
single
second
month.
time
The
as he
21
takes
Medals
ball
of Honor,
1.
29 distinguished
And that
service
one's a
crosses,
little bit
somewhere
low.
between
And that's ball
360
2.
and 600 silver stars,
And that gets the
4,000
top of the
bronze
zone for a
stars,
strike.
and 9,486
Rolled
purple hearts.
softly, but
And
that
that
goes
is the
foul.
story of the Nisei, the
With the
Americans
tying
that
run
made
at
up
the
the
plate, and the home
442nd
team trying to
Infantry
pull it
Regiment
out.
that had every excuse in the world to hate
And a
America
pop-up,
and
right
chose
side,
to
foul
love
territory.
and fight for
He's
it
under
anyways.
it.
Thank
Reaches
you for
over
watching.
the
Best
wall,
way to support the
and
channel.
he's
Go buy
got
some
it.
merch. BadElectrician.com. Black
So
Bang.
it's their last chance in this.
Out.
You fought not only the enemy, but you...
Who is
Next
the
up
most
for the
important
A's,
man
Tyler
of D-Day? If you
Soderstrom.
get on the internet or you get in a history book,
That one
and answer
missing
the question,
inside.
you're going to overwhelmingly be hit with the answer. It's General Eisenhower, which makes sense. He's the
Fall-off
officer in
foul.
charge of the entire operation, but that's not really what we're asking now, is it? I mean, when you have an Amazon package get
They're
delivered, you're
down
not
to their
exactly
final
worried
strike.
about what Jeff Bezos
Runner
is
at
up to to
second,
make sure you
2
get your
down.
package, right? You want to know where that
Swing and a miss,
You want to
struck
know
him
where the person
out,
is on
and
the
that
ground
is the
actually
ball.
getting the work done. 156,000 men took to the beaches at Normandy, and all of them had an incredibly important job. Take this objective, secure that area, make sure this happens, make sure that happens. But out of all of those missions, one of them had to have been deemed the most important. What is that mission, and who is the man that went out there and got it done? That's what we're asking. Today we're talking about Leonard Lamel, a.k.a. Bud. Despite being one of the first men wounded on D-Day, he quite literally shrugged off his gunshot wound and proceeded to lead his men into combat for 3 straight days with virtually no food, no water, and no sleep to accomplish what is deemed as the most vital aspect of the D-Day assault, according to General Omar Bradley. And we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Ridge Wallet. All right, we've talked about this before. Ridge Wallet's awesome because it helps combat a rare medical condition known as dad wallet. Okay, there are actually men out there wandering around carrying around a wallet in their back pocket that resembles a Chipotle burrito. The problem is that most men that suffer from dad wallet are in denial about it, so there's a very simple test that we can do. Open up that purse with no strap that you call a wallet, and if you still have a Blockbuster card inside of it, you have dad wallet. Sitting on a dad wallet like that is ruining your hips and it's ruining your lower back. You need to get rid of all of the junk inside of that wallet. Pick out like the 5 to 7 cards that you actually use, put them inside of a Ridge wallet, and start putting it in your front pocket. And I know what you're thinking, I don't like these metal wallets, I'm old school, I prefer leather. Congratulations, Ridge is making leather wallets now too. You have zero excuse, and to make it even better, they've got leather matching phone cases, okay? So now your OCD is happy because all your stuff is matching, and your back is gonna feel better. You're welcome. So go check out Ridge Wallet. I'm gonna have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. All right, our story begins on January 22nd, 1920, when Leonard Lamel was born in Brooklyn, New York. Shortly after that, his parents would move him out to New Jersey, and that's where he would spend the rest of his childhood growing up. He's the youngest of 4 siblings, having 3 older sisters, and both of his parents are first-generation immigrants from Norway. And like pretty much everybody else that fought during World War II, he grew up during the Great Depression. As I'm sure you can imagine, being the son of 2 first-generation immigrants during the Great Depression was not really that great of a time. Because of that, his childhood was extremely busy. When he wasn't going to school, he was playing sports. He played football, he boxed, and he played baseball. And when he wasn't doing that, he was working. If he wasn't sleeping, it was go time 24/7 throughout his entire childhood. Leonard was straight up hustling his entire childhood. He had his own business where he would catch clams and fish and sell them to local restaurants. He also worked as a caddy at the local golf course. He also ran the local bingo hall. And in addition to that, he even had a job as a delivery driver for a laundry service when he was 16 years old. And then he got fired after about a month because they found out he didn't have a driver's license. If there was money to be made, he was going to do whatever he had to make it. Despite all of that, he still made time to have a 1-hour piano lesson every single day. Fast forward, he graduates from high school, and when he gets home, both of his parents sit him down, and he remembers this because it's the first time he's ever seen his dad cry, as his dad tells him, "Len, I don't have any money to help you go to college." Now, his parents are both older at this point to have a son just graduating high school. His father is 69 years old, and they have been poor his entire childhood, and he's watched his dad work his ass off the entire time. Len was not fazed by this at all. Not only did he not expect his parents to have money for him to go to college, he fully intended to go off to college, work, and send money back home to help support them. And that's exactly what he did. He went off and he applied to every single college that he could, and only one of them was willing to give him an athletic scholarship, and that was Tennessee Wesleyan College. So that's where he went to school. And then when he wasn't playing football, he was working as much as he could to send money back home to his parents. Now, while he was going to college, the draft had started. So he figures, hey, I'm probably going to end up getting drafted anyways. So I might as well go off and try to join one of the military academies, because then I get to become an officer and I'll make even more money, which is going to allow me to send more money back home to my parents. So he wants to start applying to all the military academies, especially West Point. The problem is he goes up to the recruiter or the liaison and he's talking to him. He has all the paperwork, but he needs his birth certificate and he doesn't have it. Not only does he not have it, he doesn't even know if he has one. It's not uncommon for people born in the 1920s and the 1930s to just not have a birth certificate. A lot of people were born at home and he honestly has no idea. And mom and dad don't have a house phone, so he ends up calling his older sister and is like, hey, do I even have a birth certificate? Do you know? Do mom and dad have it? Do I need to go figure out how to go get one? What's the deal here? And his sister gets like all quiet and awkward over the phone, and she's like, I think it's best that you just come to my house and we'll talk about it. So he's like, all right, this is weird, but whatever. So he sets up a time and he goes over to his sister's house and they meet up. So he shows up at his older sister's house. She answers the door. She's being all awkward. She's got tears in her eyes. And he's like, what is the big deal? I'm just trying to get a birth certificate.
Okay,
what is going
all
on?
set
She
to go.
kind of sits him down.
And now the
she's
catcher
like,
comes up to him. Moises Ballesteros.
And he's like, okay, cool. So, like,
that's
do you have
it for
a
a
birth
strike.
certificate or not?
And
like,
we are
amazed by
underway.
the entire thing. And his sister is, like, distraught. And she's crying. And she's like, what? You don't care?
Down the
He's like,
ground
no,
to the right
not really.
side.
I had two terrific
Steps
parents
on
and great
first
sisters.
for
I
the
love you
out.
guys. It makes
Mike
literally zero
Yastrzemski
impact
up
on
here.
my life.
Star.
I'm trying to get the birth certificate so I can go off to West Point. How do I go about getting it? And his sister is like, okay, but look,
missed.
I'll get the birth certificate from mom and dad. You just have to promise me that you won't let them know that you know that you're adopted, because it means a lot
Drilled
to
out
them,
towards
because
left
they really
center
do
field.
want you to know that you're their actual son. And Bud, just completely unfazed, still is like,
Rosarino
okay, cool,
makes
great,
the
just
play.
get the birth
Two
certificate.
down.
I got stuff to do.
Hey,
Okay,
man,
great,
4
wonderful.
pitches,
Bye.
2
Well,
outs.
sister's
That
figuring
is
that
an
out. He
excellent
finishes up,
pace.
graduates from college in
So digging in,
1941, moves back
Jason
home to New
Dominguez.
Jersey, where he starts working for the railroad as he starts getting the rest of the paperwork
Swing and a
together.
ball
Find
lifted
all
in the
military
air right
academies.
field. He
And then
just
before he can
missed
get
it.
accepted into a military academy,
And
he ends
that'll
up
do
getting
it.
drafted, and so that kind of blows a hole in his entire plan.
Oh, no! No! I'm ruined!
Back at T-Mobile Park, pitching in our game today, Mick Abel. Chris, what should we keep an eye on here with him?
This guy has a ton of respect from his own teammates, Brig. He's the type of guy, if he's not having a good day, he'll go out there and just wear it. No matter what happens, his starts tend to be less demanding on the bullpen.
Late that time, and it's strike 2.
No balls, 2 strikes.
Swing and a miss, struck him out, and now 1 away. Luke Raley batted with 1 down,
So Bud
takes the
goes on training
strike.
and he absolutely crushes it for multiple reasons. One, that's just the type of guy that he is. If he's going to do something, he wants to do a
Next
good job
offering
at
is
it.
in
Number
for a
two,
strike.
he's smart. He realizes that the U.S. military is expanding rapidly. With that rapid
Strike 3,
expansion,
and
there's
that's
going to be
2
a lot
in a
of
row.
opportunities for promotion. And if he's
And
the
here
best guy
is
around,
Cal
he's going to get
Raleigh.
that promotion. And when he
Swings
gets
through
that
the
promotion,
fastball
he's going
up
to
in
get
the
more
zone.
money, which means he's going to have more money to send back home to mom and dad. So not only is he just coming at this
Swings and
as, you know, I
misses.
want to do
And
a
it's
good
nothing
job, I
in 2.
want to survive. This man is already competing for his family
Swing
to eat
and a
food
miss.
back home, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, is an
Back in
entirely
Seattle,
different level
and
of
now the
motivation that a lot
shortstop,
of other
Willie
recruits simply
Adames.
just don't have. Because of that, after he completes training, he goes off to his unit, 76th
In
Infantry
the
Division,
air,
and
right
he
center.
rapidly
This
climbs
is
the ranks. In a
smashed
matter
way
of like
back
a
and
year,
gone.
he achieves the rank of first sergeant, which, if you don't know, is absolutely
He'll take
crazy.
a
Like, by
jog
today's
around the
standards, that's
bases.
literally impossible.
It's
I think
1
the
zip.
fastest that you can
Carlos
make first sergeant
Delgado,
today,
the next
if
to
you did
hit.
everything 110% correct and you were a literal prodigy, would be 9 years. And Leonard Lamel
Late
just
swing,
did it in
foul
like
to the
12.
left.
So because he was
Always
such a hot
exciting
shot,
to see a
he's
leadoff
off by his
home
chain of
run in
command
an
to go
inning.
out to
Kind of
this
gets the
high-speed
offense
school
fired
known
up,
as
and you start to
Ranger
expect a
Combat
big
School,
inning.
which is a precursor to what we know today as the Army Rangers.
Hit
If
the
you don't
air
know, the
right
75th
field,
Ranger
and that
Regiment is a
one way
special
back
forces
there,
unit,
and that is
the easiest way I
way
can explain this to you is they're essentially America's sharpest
And
blunt
they had a
instrument.
run.
Okay, they're
It's
America's
2-0.
premier shock troops.
Now
They
at the
basically
plate,
just took
Orlando
the top
Cepeda.
1% of all the grunts, stuck them in one unit, and then they send them out to destroy things on
Swing
impossible
and a
missions.
high
And
fly
that's basically
ball
how they
out
pitch it to
towards
Lamel.
right
This is a
field.
school that you can go to, become a better leader, a better
Settles
soldier,
under
and then also
and
they're going to
makes
be
the
picking
catch.
some of the best
And
guys
he's
out
one
and
down.
going to this new special
Here's the
forces
second
unit called
baseman,
the Army
Tyler
Rangers. They're
Fitzgerald.
going to get sent out on the toughest, most dangerous missions. And obviously he agrees to do it because it's going to make him look
Now
that much
this is
better
in the
come
air
time
down
for
the
his
line.
next promotion. So he goes out to this Ranger course.
Makes the
There's
grab, 2
200
down.
recruits. They strip
Here's
them
Thompson
down,
to
they
hit
take
now.
their rank
So
off.
those can
All
be
they
pretty
have
fun
is
as an
this
outfielder.
matching
Got to put it
jumpsuit, and
into
they
his
beat the
highest
holy
gear
hell out
and
of
go
these
a long
guys
way
for
to track
weeks.
that
They
one
barely
down.
feed them, they barely
Nothing
give
better
them
than that.
water.
You
They're
feel
making
like a
them do
wide
hand-to-hand
receiver playing
training
football
all day long. They're doing ruck marches. They're doing physical training. It is an absolute nightmare.
Thompson
This is nothing like the recruiting
crushes this
brochure.
one.
By the time that
No
training's
doubt
over, that
about it.
class of
A
200
long
high
home
school
run.
soldiers has been whittled down to 60, and Leonard
And they
Lamel
boost their
not
lead.
only is
It's
he one of the
3-0.
60 that made it, he is one
Willie
of the very
Mays
best. And
now
he is
at the plate.
personally asked by the general in charge if he wants to become an Army Ranger
That's
because they're
outside.
standing up
Ball
the 2nd
one.
Ranger Battalion,
Saucedo,
and they are looking
31
for new
years old,
recruits.
and
the
he's one of
general
the few
shock,
players
Mel
in Major
actually
League
tells him he'd
Baseball
have to
born
think
in
about it.
Hawaii.
This kind of catches the general off guard, right? I mean, this is a big deal. He just went through Ranger school. Surely he wants to be a Ranger.
Swing and a
Why
high
wouldn't
fly
this
ball
guy
down
say
the right
yes
field line.
immediately? So he kind of
Zone.
pushes him on it,
Sizing
and
this
Lamel
one
tells
up.
him, like, hey, look,
Balls it
I'd love to
into
do it, but here's the
Indiana.
deal. At the end of the day, I'm here for whoever's going to pay me the most money. If I go back to my old unit, I'm going to be
And
a
we're back,
first sergeant.
ready
I
to
don't
go
want to
for
come
the
into
last
Ranger
half of the
unit
inning.
take a
And
pay
now
cut
it's the switch
and be
hitting
like,
second
a
baseman,
corporal or
Jorge
just a regular
Polanco.
sergeant or something.
Fastball
So,
for a
unless
strike.
you guys are going to make me a
0-1.
first
So after
sergeant,
scoring
or
runs,
Ranger
this is where
first
you're looking
sergeant
for that
pays more than a
shutdown
first
inning,
sergeant
get
back in
that
my
hot
normal
team
infantry
back in there to swing
I'm
the
going to have to
bats.
think about it. At which point the general's like, cool, you're a first sergeant in the Rangers and you'll get
Make
paid.
it 4
At which point
strikeouts in
Lamel is
a row.
like,
Just
dope, I'm in.
cruising
And just like
along.
that, Leonard Lamel is now the very first sergeant of
J.P.
Dog
Crawford
Company of
in
the
the box
2nd Ranger
now. No
Battalion.
balls and a strike.
It's 0-1.
So Lamel goes, he gets all his
The
boys
next
from
pitch
Dog
misses,
Company, they start
and
training
it's a
right
ball and a
away. And
strike.
you gotta remember, they're standing up the 2nd Ranger Battalion at this point, okay? It is a complete
Right
and
through there
utter
for a
shit show.
strike.
You're standing up a new unit. It's not
1 and
just
2.
like you throw a bunch of guys together, you're like, hey, you're on a team now. No, a unit
Another
has
one.
its own
That's
culture.
5
It has its
straight
own standard
strikeouts.
operating procedures. They have to build all of that from the ground up. And Leonard
Randy
Lamel and his guys at Dog
Arozarena
Company
in the
are
box
there
with 2
for every
gone
single
and
second.
takes a look
And
at a
right out of
called
the gate,
strike.
it's rough. The Army's having a very tough time
Slider
finding
for a
the right
strike.
officers to lead this unique unit into battle, right? They're constantly rotating out battalion and company commanders,
Gets the
trying
piece
to
there,
find
we'll
the
do it
right
again.
guys. And then they
I would
finally
throw
end
him
up
another
finding the
breaking
right
ball.
man to lead the
Try to
2nd
go
Ranger
get the
Battalion, a
fastball
lieutenant colonel by the
slightly
name of
elevated.
Big
He
Jim
just
Rutter.
having
On
a
his
hard
very
time
first
catching
day,
up.
he calls the entire battalion in and gives his,
We're back to
introductory
start the
speech on
third, and
his
there's a
mission,
new arm on
what
the
he's trying
mound,
to
Gabe
accomplish with the unit.
Spire.
I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what he says is, look, here's the deal. I'm going to train the holy hell out of you guys. I need you to do
Popped up.
everything I ask you to do at
Really?
110%. And in exchange, I'm going to do
One
absolutely
away.
everything I can
Really
for
nice
you. I'm
job
going
to
to
get
have
your
your back.
first out of
I'm
the
going
ball
to be
game.
your guy, and I'm going
Mike
to get you as much leave as I
getting ready
possibly
to
can.
hit.
If you give me everything you got, I'm going to give you everything I can in exchange. And that is just the beginning of the leadership clinic that Jim Rutter is
That
about
one
to put
ripped.
on. He starts having monthly
That's
right
back.
sessions for the entire battalion
And
to air out their
forget it.
grievances and what they see wrong with the battalion
He
and
shoots
everything
one out
going
to
wrong
right.
around them.
And they
he's
add
willing
on.
to listen
It's
to every
4-0.
single man under his command,
One
even
out,
the
bases
lowest
empty.
ranking private. One of
Jason
the first things the
Dominguez
Rangers complained
digs
about
in
was that
now.
the food wasn't very
Down
good.
the
So Jim
line.
Rutter had the cooks
Nobody
sent
can
back
get there,
to
and it's a
cook
foul
school to
ball.
relearn
Part of
how
the
to
order
do
coming
their
through
job.
now,
Then
and
they
with
came
one
back a
home
couple
run
of weeks
already
later,
in this
and the
inning,
Rangers still
they're
said
definitely
the
looking
food
to do
wasn't
some
good
more
enough.
damage.
So Jim Rutter sent them
Fastball
back
for a
to
strike.
school
Oh,
again.
this guy's so comfortable hitting with 2 strikes, even a good pitch early in the at-bat. If he's not ready to pull the
On another
trigger,
occasion, a
he's not
private
worried if
at
he
one of
gets
these
to an
break
0-2
sessions
count.
has the ball
Line
stand up in
drive,
front of the
and
entire
no one
battalion
can
and say,
get
sir,
there.
when I volunteered
Around
for the
first and
Rangers,
hustling
I
for
was told
second.
that
He'll
every
throw
Ranger
in,
would receive a
and
pocket
he'll reach
watch.
second with
I
one
wasn't
away.
given. Now, to us
Well, that
today, this
certainly
seems
feels
kind of
good
silly
when
or
you
petty,
can
but
win
you have
the
to put this
at-bat
in
after
context,
being
right? Back
down in the
1940s,
count, up
watches
against it
were
with
very
2
much
strikes right
considered a
there.
luxury
Not a
item
bad
because they
pitch by
didn't have
any means.
little
Down
tiny
and away, right on the corner of the zone. Just a better
you know,
swing,
what kind
Big.
of was.
Stayed
The only
through it and
watches
hit
around
it
at this
hard
time
the
were
other way.
mechanical watches and more
Dominguez
commonly
over
automatic
second,
watches, which
one
are the
down.
ones that are self-winding with all the little tiny gears and springs on the inside. They're very hard to manufacture with these tiny little itty-bitty pieces. Due to the difficulty of manufacturing
That
and
one
the fact
pushed
that the
foul.
Army is growing exponentially, they simply can't manufacture watches fast enough to be able to give every person in the military a watch, despite the fact that the Army does have a standard issue
second.
watch, the A11. So at this point
He
in time, not
swings and
everybody's
drives
getting a
one
watch.
out
They're
to deep
reserving
left
it for people
field.
that need
That's
it the most.
going
People
back.
like
Back
pilots,
some
people
more.
in leadership
And
positions.
outta
They're definitely
here.
not giving them out to everyone.
Another
Private
homer.
that's just there to take
His
orders.
second
But
home
this
run of the
isn't just a
game,
lowly
and
private.
they add a
This is
pair.
private in the
It's
2nd Ranger
6-0.
Battalion that he was promised a watch to be a
And
Ranger.
the batter now,
And because
Carlos
of that, Jim
Delgado.
Rutter takes off
And
his
first
personal
offering
watch in
is
front of
fouled
everybody
off.
and gives it to the
Still
private.
only
So obviously,
one
Jim
out here
Rutter's
in
an
the
incredible
inning.
leader, but more importantly, that, he's also a visionary that has all kinds of crazy training that he's going to have.
This one smoked on its way out of here.
He gets his hands on all of the German firearms, right? He gets into
They do it again.
Burp guns. He gets all the German weapons, and he trains his entire Ranger battalion
his second homer of the game. It's 7-0.
and fire all of the German weapons, because he knows that they're going to send him into a mission and they're going to run out of ammo, and they might have to start picking up guns off of all the dead Germans that they've killed. So he wants every single man in the Ranger Battalion to be able to use those weapons.
That one the other way, puts it away for the out.
In case the Germans want to break out the mustard gas like they did last time, and then after that they mostly focus on climbing. And the way they go about that is they end up shipping over to Great Britain, and the entire battalion is staying inside of this hotel that's on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Okay? And they get there, and they have the battalion climbing training, and then Jim Rutter walks all the guys through like this carved-in staircase that goes down this 80-foot cliff that goes down to the ocean. He's like, these are the cliffs that we're going to be climbing. Also, this is the only time we're using that staircase, and everybody is kind of wondering, how are we going to get down here if we're not using the stairs? Every single morning to get to training,
and a foul ball, he stays alive.
Third story of the hotel, tie a rope to the radiator, throw it out the window, rappel down the side of the hotel, run across the yard, scale the chain link fence where the cliff is so nobody falls off,
spoils
and
the
then
two-strike
down
pitch, and
the
he'll see
80-foot cliff just to get to the beach, to get to training on how to climb. And once they're down there, they do all different types of climbing. They're climbing with grappling hooks and ropes, they're climbing with nets, they're free climbing. Any and every technique they have available, they're getting super good at. And around this time in training, one of the sergeants for Dog Company accidentally drops an entire ammo bag on the men down below. Somebody ends up getting injured. The company commander ends up ordering Lamel to bust this guy down from sergeant to private, which is a big deal, getting demoted from NCO all the way back down to private. Big pay cut. It sucks. Lamel doesn't want to do it. It was an accident, but he's ordered to do it by the company commander, so he has to go ahead, and he does it. And the sergeant, now private, doesn't take it very well. And he says something along the lines of, you know what, that's fine for a sergeant.
Pretty tough for the infielders to do anything with that one. He pulled it hard into the outfield,
kind of like this veiled
even when you keep it on the ground.
Fitzgerald
to
Thomas, that's
sorry,
one.
you're upset.
Ow,
Anyways, moving on. They get back to training, and they're climbing. And while they continue their climbing training, they find out that not only are they going to be partaking in D-Day, but they're going to be given the most dangerous and most important mission of the entire D-Day assault.
ED has affected my confidence. I found him. The app is easy. I know that I'm going to be ready to perform.
It was better for both of us.
Treat ED with Dr. Trusted Medication. Get started today at hims.com.
All right. Just want to see how close we are.
I'll help you get.
We are at 30 out of 50.
What is there to explain?
All the moments are done.
Cassie,
We still need a bunch of PXP with these two. 500 more with this. That's done. I need 4 more total bases. 5 more extra base hits. 4 more extra base hits. 4 more extra base hits, and I need 24 total bases.
Utah Beach for D-Day, there is a point known as Point du Hoc, and on top of it is 6 German 155mm artillery pieces. If these artillery pieces are allowed to remain functional during the landings, it will lead to the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans and potentially the sinking of Navy vessels because it overlooks the surrounding ocean as well. The problem is the only way to get up there to destroy that artillery is to climb a 110-foot cliff face while the Germans are shooting at you. This is deemed absolutely impossible by military intelligence. One of the military intelligence reports literally says, and I quote, 3 old women with brooms could repel a landing force at Point du Hoc. General Bradley, in his memoir, recalls this order as the most difficult thing he's ever asked of anyone in his 40-year-long career. Because of this, they give the Rangers anything and everything they think they might need to be successful, and they're allowed to come up with whatever plan they think is going to work, because at this point, they're basically the climbing experts in the U.S. military. They get them aerial footage so they know the terrain. They build them 3D models so every single Ranger in the 2nd Ranger Battalion can remember every little tiny aspect of Point du Hoc. So the plan is they're going to show up to Point du Hoc and try to disable this artillery prior to the first wave of D-Day, because remember, that's the entire point. They have to get this artillery disabled before everybody else starts landing on the beach, right? So not only are they being given this difficult task of climbing a 100-foot cliff under enemy gunfire, nobody else is there, so they get the Germans' undivided attention the entire time. So the obvious question, how on earth are you actually going to do this and have any amount of success? Hear me out. we're going to take all of the landing ships, and we're going to mount gigantic grappling hooks onto rocket launchers, and we're just going to beach the ships and fire rocket-propelled grappling hooks up over the cliff and start climbing as fast as humanly possible. And then as soon as some of the guys start making it to the top of the cliff and getting in a firefight with the Germans, and the Germans have their hands occupied with that, we're going to bring in another landing ship that's got a fire truck ladder on it that can reach to the top of this cliff. We're going to beach that and then use the fire truck ladder to funnel more guys up the cliff even faster. And at the top of that fire truck ladder is going to be a guy with 3 Vickers machine guns. So he's just going to pop up from over this cliff edge with 3 machine guns and start mowing down Germans. It's the craziest fucking plan I've ever heard in my life.
That's what you need. So it's a miracle. Guns. Lots of guns.
No one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
You remember a couple of minutes ago when I said the Rangers are the U.S. military's sharpest blunt instrument? This is exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Their strategy is to run face first into the German defenses and just be so fast and so overtly aggressive that they win anyways. I mean, could you imagine being a German soldier, seeing a bunch of American ships roll up, and they're like, oh, hey, the Americans are here, and suddenly gigantic fucking grappling hooks strapped to rockets start landing 100 feet up this cliff next to you. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And then as soon as you're able to get your shoes on and grab your gun and go do something about it, a fucking fire truck ladder pops up from over the side of this cliff with a dude with 3 fucking machine guns. He's only got 2 arms. What does he need 3 machine guns for? This is the most American shit I've ever heard of in my entire life. I mean, we've all heard the expression, it's faster to switch to your sidearm than it is to reload, but we've never heard the expression, it's faster to switch to your tertiary machine gun than it is to reload your first 2 machine guns. So that's really the entire game plan, just straight up brute force and ignorance. Hit the enemy so hard, so fast that the fight is over before they even know they're in a fight. All right, D-Day, this is the part where I wish I could tell you that they rolled up, everything went according to plan, and it was quick, violent, and over. We win, hooray. But that's not what happened because it was a shit show the entire time. Here's what's going on. It's supposed to be about an hour and 20-minute boat ride in a British LCA. Think of it as like a bigger version of an American Higgins boat, and we've got the British Navy piloting these ships. And while that's going on, we've decided we're not just going to use the element of surprise. Instead, we're going to pound Point Du Hoc with aerial bombardment and naval bombardment from the USS Texas and the USS Arkansas, and then we're going to stop bombarding it right as the Rangers roll up. That way, by the time they get the courage to poke their heads out, the Rangers are going to scale the cliff. That's the plan that we're going. And the first problem is half the Rangers have food poisoning. Last night for dinner, they gave these guys hot dogs, and one of the batches of hot dogs was tainted, and now about half the Rangers are
this one could be extra bases.
And on top
Makes
of that,
the turn and heads for second. The throw in,
even worse.
and he's into scoring position with a leadoff double. Maybe a chance for our first run here. Runner in scoring position, no outs. Here comes Mike Yastrzemski to the plate.
This is supposed to be about an hour and 20-minute boat ride to get from the big ship
Ripped on a
all the way
line.
to the beach, and they're just sitting
Down
there
the
going up and
line,
down
and
the seas,
it's
doing sick,
foul.
they're puking, they're looking over at Point Du Hoc, and it is just getting pounded by the British RAF dropping bombs.
And that
and
misses.
American naval
And the
gunfire
count is
hitting this
1-1.
point over
Well,
and
this can be
over
tough.
and
You know
over
he's not
again.
going to try to
So
beat you
loud,
with
these guys
velocity,
can't hear
but he's going to
themselves.
sink it,
One
he's
of
going
them
to change
actually
speeds,
leans
and
over
he's
to
going to
Leonard
pitch
Linnell,
backwards at
screams at the
times.
top of his
And
lungs
a count
just so Leonard
1 and
can hear.
2.
I wonder if they know we're coming. As they get closer and closer to the shore, both Lieutenant Colonel Rudder and Linnell realize that the
That's
British
inside.
toxins that are driving these boats are taking them to the wrong drop-off point. It takes a while, but they argue with the British. They're telling them they're going to the wrong spot. The British don't think they are. The Rangers are like, trust me, we've
Definitely got the
memorized
hitter
every
conscious
square
of the
inch of this
pitch
beach. We know
inside.
exactly where we're
Really
supposed
think
to be.
the outer
We need
half
to take
is
us over
open.
there. So they change course, but they're
And
wasting
ball
time,
4
right?
to
Because they're
aboard.
bombarding
Now
Point
the
Du
left
Hoc,
fielder,
and they need to be able to
Jason
land and
Dominguez.
start climbing that
Well, he
cliff
took his
the
chance at
second
getting
those
into chase
bombs and
right
naval
there, but
gunfire
with first
stop.
base
As they
open,
begin
walked
making
out
their
a
way to
bad
the right
thing. He
drop-off
set up
point, the
a
seas
double
are
play
so rough that
opportunity
some of
if
these
he can
boats are
induce a
getting so
ground
much
ball.
water in them that 2 of them actually end up sinking, and the other boats have to make a hard decision
on
to just
second.
keep pushing
Yastrzemski
forward because
on
they
at
don't
first with
have
nobody
time
out.
to stop and save those guys. Another Navy ship's going to have to come in
That
after
one
them and pick them
finds
up
the
there.
zone.
And just like
That's
that,
strike
before they even
one.
hit the beach, they are already going from 225 Rangers down to 108. By the time they reach the beach at Point Du Hoc, they are 40 minutes behind schedule, meaning
Ground
that the
ball up the
bombardment
middle.
has ended
Oh, great
40 minutes
stop.
ago, and
There's
the Nazis
one.
had about
The
30
first
minutes to
nod in
regroup and
time.
get ready for this
Great
attack. They know
effort
it's
there.
coming. This is already
Here's the catcher,
catastrophic
Johnny
for the
Bench.
success of this mission, but there's nothing they can do do but keep pushing forward because they can't do it a different day. There's 156,000 other men that are about to hit the beaches.
And the first pitch is drilled in the air out to center. Myers.
With 155mm artillery.
He's got it.
And the
Runner
main thing's
tags
worse
for
because
third.
the Rangers are 40 minutes behind schedule.
Plays the plate, safe, and they take the lead.
110-foot cliff under enemy
Gomez
gunfire.
stands
Get
in.
up there, fight the
You have to
enemy,
be careful
and
throwing him
destroy the
breaking
artillery
pitches,
before
even in an
everybody else
0-0
starts
count.
landing.
He loves going after the off-speed stuff, and he's really good at hitting it.
Lamel's boat is one of the first ones to beach itself. They drop the door. He goes running out
missed.
first. He's going to lead his men into combat. He's supposed to be in about ankle-deep water. He takes one step and sinks. He's completely consumed by the water. In
Out of
hindsight,
line, out
thinks that
towards
one of the
center.
bombs from the RAF missed
Base
the target,
hit.
created
And
a
now
crater
first
right
and
where the
second
water
with
line
2
is,
outs.
filled with water, and that's what he was sucked
You'll
into.
often hear
His
the
men end
phrase,
up pulling him
short
out,
to
and as
it,
soon as the
long
men get him
through
pulled
it,
out, he
and
gets
that's a
shot
great
in the back.
example
And
of it
Lamel,
right
having
there.
been
Got
shot
the
and
barrel in the
almost
hitting
drowned in
zone
a matter of
early,
a couple of seconds,
squared it
doesn't
up
really
with
know
the
what happened,
well-timed
so he
swing,
turns around
and came
thinking
away with a
that
beautiful
shot
line drive in the center.
And there's the third out. That'll do it for the inning.
I'll see you in combat, First Sergeant. His brain immediately
Xavier
thinks,
Edwards
this
gets a chance
motherfucker
to
just
hit
shot
here.
me, so he goes and grabs this kid, and the medic and all the other men have to pull Lamel off of him. They're like, no, he didn't shoot you, it's the enemy. So Lamel turns and runs into combat. His men go running after him, and Lamel and the rest of Dog Company managed to scale the 110-foot cliff under enemy
On the
gunfire
ground, right
in
side.
under 10 minutes.
Sneaks
Yeah, just for the
through,
record, I
base
can get my
hit.
wife and kids in the
Off to a
car
good
in under
start
10
for the
minutes.
leadoff
These guys
guy.
got 30 men with guns and
He kind of
50-pound
rolled over on this
backpacks of
pitch a little bit, but he got enough behind it to shoot it through for a knock, and you'll take that anytime you can get him to find a hole.
Otto Lopez in the box now.
They're
Strike one.
disoriented, and all their plans
Throw.
go right out
Got
the window.
him.
Remember,
What
they
a
studied the
laser from
terrain.
Johnny
They know what
Bench.
it's supposed to look like up there, and it does not look like that now. The Allied
Got
forces
him
have
looking for
bombarded
the
Point Duhok
strikeout.
with
That was pretty nasty.
380 tons of ordnance, okay? What they're looking at now
This one in
resembles
the air right
surface of
field.
the moon. There's no time to make a new plan. The clock is ticking, and they have to destroy these guns, okay? Given a lack of instruction, you have to
Welcome
resort to
back, and
destruction.
we've got a new
All
arm
of
on the mound to
Rangers
start the
proceed to
second.
dive
Ronnie
into one of these
Enriquez.
massive craters from
Just trying to
above.
keep
They
this
said
one
these
close
craters were
here,
so
and
big
this is
they could
where a
easily
bullpen
fit
can give their
15
players
to
a
20
chance to
men.
fight
Half
back
the men
into
in
the
the crater
game.
pop up and start returning fire to the Germans, giving cover for the other half of the men
Oh,
to
no
jump
waiting
to the
around
next
right
nearest
there.
crater.
He was
Then they
ready to
begin
swing
returning
it on the
fires
first
for the
pitch.
other half
I could
to
watch
catch up
base
to
hits
them,
like
and they
that one
begin
all
using
day
bounding or
long, and so
leapfrogging
could every
to
hitting
go all
coach
the
in the
way to where
league.
one
Just
of these
a
guns
nice
are. They
line
can see
drive
the
into center
massive
field.
gun barrels
Swing
sticking
and a
up in the
ball
air,
lifted
pointed
in
at
the
Omaha
air.
Beach. They
Myers.
finally get to the gun, and they hop down in the artillery emplacement. It's not a
Drops
gun.
into the
It's a
glove,
fucking telephone
and there's
pole
one
that's
down.
propped up to look like a gun barrel. Immediately,
Willie
Lamel is like,
Mays
what
digging
the
in
fuck
now.
is going on? But we can't wait. We have to
You
keep
can talk
going.
metrics
There's
and all that
potentially
stuff,
5
but
more
no matter
guns. We
what,
need to
I
take
think
them
Willie
out,
Mays
too.
is
So
the
they begin
greatest
bounding
defensive
again to
center
the next
fielder the
gun.
game's
It's a
ever
telephone
seen.
pole. The next gun. It's a
And
telephone
ball
pole.
one.
Soon, they've
And
been
just
to
to
all
touch
6
on
artillery
Mays'
emplacements,
defensive
and all of them
ability, there
are
isn't a
telephone
ball he
poles.
couldn't
The
get
guns
to
aren't even
or a
here.
throw he
Lamel's
couldn't
furious.
make.
He's got
He was
steam
an
coming
artist
out
out
of his
there in the
ears. Was all
outfield.
this for nothing? Were the
Right
guns ever
side.
here? Was this just a clever ploy by the Germans and the U.S.
Nabs
military
it
intelligence fell for it?
Number
Did he just
2.
risk his life and all the lives of his men
Moises
for literally no reason at all?
Ballesteros,
And as
the
Lamel's
next
trying
to
to
hit.
figure out what to do next, there's this underground fortress that they didn't even tell him was there. They just found it. So Easy Company ends up going in. They're going to clear out the fortress
Hit
while
the
the rest
air,
of the Dog
left
Company
field,
goes and tries to
Stowers.
find these guns.
And
they
that's
can't
the
find
third
the
out.
guns. They're going to go to the road back behind Point Duhok and
Back
try to
here in
hold it
Miami,
and prevent
bottom of the
German
second.
reinforcements
Now
from going
here's the
to Omaha
cleanup
and
hitter for
Beach. So
Miami,
Easy and Dog
Kyle
Company split up. Dog
Stowers.
Company heads out
There's
to
a
the
strike at
Fitness
the
Road,
knees.
and as they're making their way
0-1.
there, Lamel notices a set of ruts in one of the roads, like something
And a
really
swing
heavy
and a miss
drove
there.
through when the ground was wet. He wants to go investigate, but also he can't. He's literally accomplished nothing
Off the
so
mark
far. He
there.
has to go to
Now
the Fitness
1
Road
and
for
2.
that.
That's a good
He has
pitch
to do
there.
something to help
Really
the
had
guys
some
out
run
on the
and
beach.
finished
So what he decides to
up
do
and
is he's
in
going to send
just
the
on
rest
the
of his
edge.
company to go
Got
defend
him
that road.
swinging.
They all know what they're doing. He
And
grabs
here
his
is
best buddy,
Dane
Jack
Myers.
Kuhn, and him and Jack are going to go investigate
Strike
these ruts
one.
real quick. It's probably nothing, but he has to know. So Lamel and Jack take off running, following these ruts, and after about a
Pitch
mile,
misses
it
inside.
actually leads to
1
all
and
6
1.
of the German guns.
I told you about.
Say hello to the new Topo Chico
Line
Hard
drive
Pass
ripped down the
with
left
more
side
heartbreak
towards the
flavor
left field
and
corner. So they get a man aboard with a
Now, they don't
one-out
know this at
single.
the time, but the reason the Germans moved the guns from alternate
Well, that may
locations
end up
because
being
all
an
of the
at-bat we
Allied
go
bomb
back
rates
to
that took
later
place
on when when this game is over. Good job getting the foot down so he could catch it out front and pull it. Turn on it nicely for the mount.
Swings through that one for strike 2. Runner on the move.
They can drop them on any German
and foul ball.
As it would have it, by sheer coincidence, most of the time,
foul ball, it stays 0-2. Left-hand batter waits.
was Point du Hoc. So it had
waves
been
a defender for the strikeout.
Months by just random
now here is Derek Hill.
And because of that,
through
the
that
Germans
one for strike one.
Typically the outfield defense.
Here goes the runner.
The American and Allied
that one's fouled off.
From there, the Germans were planning on having the men in the underground tunnel network at Point du Hoc be able to call that targeting information.
We're back to start the third, and there's a new arm on the mound, Jesus Tinoco.
Pretty tight game, so they're looking for quality pitches out of him right here. Got to do his best to keep the score right where it is.
Yastrzemski stands in now, looks at that one inside.
Because they're still back 50 yards away, dicking off at their little camp, leaving the guns completely unmanned. So they both sneak up to these gun emplacements, and Lamel tells Jack, hey, give me your thermite grenade.
That's off the mark, and the count 2-1.
If they start coming towards us, light them up, and that'll be my signal to hop out of the hole, and we'll try to run off back to dog count.
Swing and a miss as he was late that time.
Good late sink on that fastball. Out of the hand looks so good, and then by the time he gets in the hitting zone, hard to get the barrel to it.
It just burns at 4,000 degrees, and he takes one of these grenades, shoves it down the first gun barrel, goes to the next one, shoves the second grenade down that gun barrel.
Kicking in is the switch-hitting outfielder, Jason Dominguez.
He knows he's going to have to go back and get more thermite grenades and come back and destroy these guns.
That one to first.
These 4 guns perfectly operational.
Takes it to the bag, steps on first, and it's out number 2.
So what he does, he takes his field
2 out,
off,
space
wraps
is empty.
it around the
Johnny
buttstock of his
Bench
rifle,
will hit next.
Uses it to
drove in a run with a sac fly his first time up.
That he possibly can, and he's just jamming shit
that one
off the
fouled off.
mechanisms, doing everything he can to ruin these guns the best he can without more thermite grenades. Once he's satisfied, him and Jack run back to
2 out, space is
get more
empty.
thermite grenades, go back to the guns. Thank God they're still not guarding them. And they finish destroying the other 4 guns. This is great news. The mission's accomplished. Now Dog Company just has to go hold this road for 24 hours until they get hit with reinforcements.
Drilled out towards left center field. That's well struck.
Jack kind of looks over.
Alright, we need 3 more.
Get in a firefight back there. I've only got one
they
magazine.
tack on to their lead. It's
Like,
2-0.
Why? He's like, I don't.
Next to
I
hit,
lost
Willie
it at some point
Adames.
during,
And
all
a
the
strike on
planning
the
and
outside
running
edge.
around from bomb crater to bomb crater. So yeah, I've only had 15 bullets on me this entire time. It's
in the air out towards
why
right
didn't you
center.
ask me for something?
Myers
Jack's like, I don't know, I
sizes
didn't
this
think
one
about it.
up.
Regardless, they make their way back over
He's
the road.
got it,
Back
and
up to
that'll
Dog Company. When they get there, Dog Company's in the middle
back
of a
here in Lone
firefight.
Depot
Dog
Park.
Company's on one
Set
side of
for
the
the
road,
bottom of the
hiding
third,
box
and here's
holes
the
or ditch
catcher,
or whatever.
Liam
On the other
Hicks.
side of the road, there's a house.
That
and a
one's
German
in
machine
there,
gun nest
and that is strike one.
Lamel gets in there, figures out what's going on. Basically, his entire company is planning on just bum rushing
Smoke to the left, base hit.
He's like, well, hold on. He's feeling pretty good at this
Man
time.
aboard
Right?
on the
He's
leadoff
got those
single.
guns basically by himself. He's got that main character energy flowing. He's like, all right, here's the deal. You guys
Nice
stay
job
here.
of driving
Hand me
that
that
pitch the
bazooka.
other way
Arm
on
the
a
charge in
line.
the back.
Hitters,
I'll
they
take care
take
of
so
this.
many reps
they
in the
arm
cages,
charge in the
working
back,
on going to
hand
the
him
opposite
bazooka.
field,
He
and it
goes
doesn't
running
always
up,
translate
pops up
into
out
the
of
game,
ditch
but
with
right there
bazooka,
it did,
aims at the
and he
machine
did it
gun nest.
perfectly.
They start returning
Swing
fire.
and a miss,
Lamel
and he
fires the
struck
bazooka.
him out.
Click.
Now 5 strikeouts
This
for him
guy's
on the
didn't
mound.
arm the bazooka around the right way. So he almost gets shot, ducks back down into the ditch. Well, that was
Breaking
kind of a,
down
it's only
this
going to
down
work
and
one
away.
strategy,
You
so
want
we
a
can't
guy
really
that
replicate
battles
that
at the
now.
plate
So
in the
it
biggest
looks like we
moments
are
of the
going to
game, and that's what they have right now
So he
up
starts getting
there.
his guys
Anyone
ready,
can
and
shake
he's
it
like
up.
counting
It's
down,
this guy
and one
right
of his
here.
guys just like
Ring
jumps
him
the
up,
gun,
says
like
Daryl
1,
Parker.
2, and he
That's
jumps
a
up and goes to
strikeout.
run. Germans open up with machine gun fire. He
Lopez
stumbles
batting
back
for the second
into the
time,
trench and ends up
and that's
landing on
strike
one of the
one.
other Rangers' bayonets on his thigh. So now
Check
he's
swing, and he
another guy
waits.
down just
No
for him
balls, 2
being a dumb.
strikes.
So they get that guy bandaged up, leave him in the trench, and the
Gets a
rest of them
piece,
go assault this
and
machine gun
stays
nest,
alive.
take it out. Now they've secured the road. From there, Lamel's got like
Abel
12 guys
is
left.
just
He
one
takes his
strike
fastest
away.
guys and
Swing
instructs
and a
them to
ball
run
popped
back
in the air.
to
And
take
that will
separate
drop
routes.
foul.
That way, if one of them get
Trying
caught,
run
the
at the
other one
plate.
shouldn't hear me still make it back.
Hit
And
to the
deliver
left
message
side,
to
and this is
Lieutenant
gonna do
Colonel
it.
Mission accomplished.
That's
We
the
destroyed
ball
the
game.
guns, and I desperately need reinforcements up to hold this road. Luckily, both men end up making it back to Rudder. They deliver the message. He's super happy about it. The problem is, all of the Rangers' communication equipment got damaged with all the water from the beach landing. In addition to that, they asked for more reinforcements to be able to hold Point du Hoc and secure the road. Unfortunately, there aren't any. What the Rangers have now is all they're going to get. So Rudder sends Lamel's guys back to him with the message, hold until duly relieved. Not exactly what Lamel wanted to hear, but it's what we got to do. So him and his men are just hiding, waiting to ambush anybody that's going to reinforce the beach. Luckily, after a couple of hours, more Rangers show up, about 50, 60 guys, and they line up along the road too. The Rangers are now spread out, covering about 300 to 400 yards of this road. About an hour later, an entire German battalion attacks, but they attack all the way on the other end of the Ranger formation. Lamel and Dog Company are the furthest away from it, so Lamel orders his men to hold their fire and not give up their position. That way,
two more.
they're there to surprise him in case they try to flank the other Rangers. The Rangers repel the attack fairly quickly, which tells Lamel he definitely made the right decision because that was just testing him. They wanted to know how many Rangers were there, where they were at, and what they were capable of. And now they don't know that Lamel and Dog Company are there to help too. About an hour later, the Germans attack again, and they attack so hard, so quick, that they end up fracturing the Ranger line, and the other two companies are forced to retreat. And by the time Lamel gets word that they're retreating, the Germans are already behind him, and he's completely cut off. So with the rest of the Rangers being driven back and Lamel and Dog Company being the only ones left behind enemy lines to guard this road, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to continue to guard the road to prevent reinforcements from making it to the beach because that's what the mission is. Back at Pointe du Hoc with the rest of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, they are boxed in on 3 sides by the Germans, and they have the ocean to their back. They have nowhere to go, and they are just stuck there trying to survive. Rudder finally comes to the realization that Dog Company has more than likely been killed in action since they didn't make it back with everybody else. So with that in mind and needing to keep himself from being overrun, he calls for naval gunfire into the enemy lines, which is actually where Lamel and Dog Company are. The USS Texas begins bombarding that exact area. For the next 2 days, the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc fight for their survival while Lamel and Dog Company are stuck behind enemy lines, guarding the road, while the USS Texas is constantly bombarding them. They pretty much just have to keep their heads down, hope that a large formation of Germans don't come looking for them, and hope that the USS Texas doesn't blow them off the face of the earth. Despite all of this, Lamel is still determined to stop reinforcements from making it to the beach, and if they do come marching by, he is going to attempt to do something about it, but with only 12 men, it's almost certainly a death sentence, and luckily, that doesn't end up happening.
Ready
Well,
to go
good.
now?
Now
A chance for Moises Ballesteros.
This entire mission was only supposed to be about a 12-hour ordeal. None of the Rangers packed food. They packed very little.
Drive.
Nice swing and good solid contact. I thought it was slow, but needed a little more lift to get into the outfield gap. Maybe a little more backspin.
They drive the Germans back. Lamel and Dog Company are able to
Mike Yastrzemski, batting with one down, takes a strike.
Rudder's pumped. He thought Lamel and Dog Company were dead. And then Rudder realizes, oh shit, I've had the USS Texas shooting cars at you guys for the past 48 hours. My bad. At which point Lamel presumably is like, don't worry about it, I've got
a couple of quick outs.
And again, I'm assuming here, but it's around this point where Lamel goes, oh shit, I got shot 2 days ago. And he pulls up his shirt, looks at his gunshot wound, it's right through the side of the muscle, misses all the organs. Fires over to first. 3 days since he got shot, and he has not been in a very clean environment. His wound
now
is
it's the second baseman, Jose Iglesias. That's in there. And that's strike one.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now, and the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day.
I wouldn't throw him another breaking ball. Try to go again with a fastball slightly elevated. He just having a hard time catching up.
Soft contact in the air. Nice grab.
While at Britain, Lamel undergoes surgery, gets treated with antibiotics,
Jackson Merrill.
Be given some kind of an assignment. It's basically determined by the chain of command. Like, hey, we basically sent you in on a death mission. You got shot. You're the one that took out the guns at Pointe du Hoc. You've done enough. We're not going to send you back into combat. We're actually going to put you in charge of this prison, and this prison is for American soldiers who skipped out on me. And Lamel's not even a little bit interested.
Fernando
He basically goes AWOL, hitchhikes back to the front line and links back up with the 2nd Ranger Battalion and Dog Company.
I'm back.
Yeah,
so he makes back to his guys, and they're only like 7 miles further in.
2 out spaces empty.
And everybody kind of thinks that like the Battle of Normandy was like the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. It was literally 45 minutes, and that was the end.
Second inning set to go, and now the catcher comes up to him.
They're still in the middle of the same battle where he was injured. He's went back to a different country, got the surgery, and hitchhiked back to the front line of the very same overall major battle. Hey, if you're not picking up on a button down, the enemy literally took out Leonard Lamel, and he respawned into the same battle. Okay, this is the most main character shit that's ever happened. So he gets back to the 2nd Ranger Battalion. He's immediately given a promotion to Sergeant Major, the highest enlisted rank, and then he is also given the Distinguished Service Cross. Now, the Distinguished Service Cross is the 2nd highest award that you can get, right below the Medal of Honor, which raises the question, why on earth is he not being awarded the Medal of Honor? And the answer to that actually lies in the 1st Ranger Battalion that is currently basically a bunch of living legends after
Orlando Cepeda.
Italy. Their commander, William Darby, they were affectionately known as Darby's Rangers. He
Here's a swing and a drive left field. field, and he knew it.
Thank you, Cepeda.
Because that's how tight-knit their
He
team
circles
was.
the bases, just like that, they move in front. It's 1-0. Base is empty with 2 away. Now here is Tyler Fitzgerald.
That's kind of cool.
Swing and a ball drilled to the air towards right center field. Merrill makes the grab, and that's the inning.
Under the sun, including the Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Stars, Bronze Stars. So, like, why not let them get the
Back here in San Diego, here's the third baseman, Manny Machado.
Kind of agreed with me, and because of that, when
that one finds the zone. That's strike one.
He told him, and I quote, "This is your Medal of Honor."
Right side, hard hit.
From here, the Rangers are going out on missions.
Throws to first in time.
Here and there. They
That's one out the bottom of the second. Luis Ariz stands in.
So he's doing a nice job of keeping the ball out of the air, lets the defense work behind him with another ground ball. Good execution.
Out in front with the swing, and that is strike one.
From here, the Rangers get sent over to a place called the Hertzkin Forest. Very, very dense
swing
forest.
Swing a fly ball in the air out towards right center field.
That's a hit. The Germans really seem to think it's important, so the Americans are just going to fight them for it. They don't even know why. And here's a kicker,
you know what they say, he couldn't have thrown it out there any better than that, and certainly the case that time. Just flared it back behind the second baseman and dropped it in there.
Swings and misses. They're showing up and fighting so hard is because the Americans are showing up there and fighting so hard.
Swing and a miss. Struck him out of the slider, and there's 2 gone.
And they have no idea why either. So literally both sides of this extremely deadly battle are just operating on, I don't know what you're up to, but fuck you, I'm not going to allow it.
Out in front that time.
Right now, they're looking for something, hit hard into the gaps, give them an opportunity with 2 outs to score that run from first.
So Lamel and the
Rangers
Rangers end up showing
ball
up,
out
and he's
to
thinking
center.
in his head,
Mays
like, okay,
has
I'm
it
an
sized
officer
up.
now, they're going to send us into battle,
Squeezes it,
and whatever that is, we're going to win, hooray, but the leadership
doesn't really understand. We're back to start the third, and there's a new arm on the mound, Robert Suarez.
Yeah, so they just end up putting him out on the line and tell him to hold this ground and
This
don't
one
let the
high in the air to left center. Cheeks on the move to the gap, puts it away for the out, and there's one down. And now the center fielder, Willie Mays.
Belgium, Germany area, okay, it's super cold, and all these guys are doing is basically hiding in their foxholes, freezing their asses off all day. So this goes on for like a month, just being cold,
swing and a ball hit out towards left center field, and there's 2 away.
They get orders to move out. They've got some dangerous mission.
2 down, bases empty. Moises Ballesteros now at the plate. 0 for 1 so far.
The Germans, but the Americans call it Hill 400 because it is
swing and a high fly ball to left.
400 is the high ground of the Hertzkin Forest, and it is the reason that they're not making any headway in this battle because the Germans can see everything.
And welcome back to the ballpark as we go to the last of the third.
So
here's the catcher, Luis Campusano.
The problem is every time they move an infantry regiment in, they just get beat back, and nobody can seem to penetrate and take over this town. The last American unit that tried had just over 5,000 men in tanks, and they failed. So now they're considered the second Ranger Battalion with approximately 500 men. Lamel, his guys at Dog Company and F Company are going to be responsible for taking the hill, and all the other Ranger companies are going to be taking Bergstein. They spent the first 2 days
swings and misses, struck him out.
Machine gun nest and fortification.
There's Gavin Sheets now, left-hand back. And the first pitch misses for ball 1.
Capture both Bergstein and the hill in an hour and a half. But the problem is both Dog and Fox
to left, and it stays there. Takes the turn. He's digging for second.
So now he's going to hold this.
Dominguez fires it in quickly as the tie run is forced to stop at second. Now it's going to be Jose Iglesias. That's through there for a strike. And it's 0-1. Ball 1 there.
Be able to see far enough into enemy lines that they're going to be able to see a massive.
And a swing and a miss.
Well, if he's going to do something special right here, it's going to have to happen with 2 strikes.
Or the Battle of the Bulge. This is Hitler's last-ditch effort to turn the tide of World War II, and it relies heavily on the element of surprise.
Still 1 and 2.
And the Allies have Hill 400.
You could see he's trying to stay back long enough to handle the off-speed pitch, but just a little tardy on the fastball.
Fly ball to right.
General in charge sent in his best
and there's 2 away.
Orders that whoever's able to retake that hill is all going to get their men iron crosses, which
so
is like a very high-ranking German
next for the Padres, Jackson Merrill. And immediately pumps in a strike to the left-handed hitter.
To start digging foxholes,
and strike 2
might be coming
with the winning run at the plate. And the home team's trying to pull it out.
Got it, and that's the ball all over the ground, and there's tree roots all over the dirt. So whatever foxholes they're able to dig, they're not very deep. So an hour later, when the German artillery starts landing, it absolutely devastates every ranger on top of that hill. Almost every ranger on top of the hill is hit with shrapnel from German artillery. It's just a matter of how bad their individual injuries are. Lamel himself is also hit in the hand, and his index finger is dangling by a piece of connective tissue. Between Dog and Fox Company, about 130 rangers attack this hill, and right out of the gate, Lamel is already down to about 40 men that can move around and actually fight, and his mom's going to be pissed off because he's not going to be able to play the piano with 9 fingers. Lamel immediately realizes that playing conventional defense isn't going to work. He doesn't really have many foxholes, and even if he did, he doesn't have enough men to man him. So he decides the best defense is a good offense. He sends out 2-man scout squads, and they're going to patrol around the base of the hill, and whenever they see that the Germans are starting to set up an attack, they're going to report back where the Germans are going to attack, and all of the men that Lamel has, all 40 to 50 guys, are going to run and meet that attack head on and drive them back. And that's exactly what happens. Shortly after that shelling, the Germans attack. Lamel and his men meet them head on. They drive them back. They get shelled again. They scout. They find where the Germans are going to attack again. They meet it head on again. And this goes on over and over and over again. Lamel and his men are running around all over this hill, getting in every single firefight that there is. And when they're not doing that, they're trying to render aid to all the guys that are wounded. But to the Germans, it feels a lot different because every time they try to attack from a different spot and a different angle, they run face first into 50 pissed off Army Rangers. So the Germans are thinking there's like 1,000 Army Rangers on top of this hill, but regardless, they keep on attacking and they keep on shelling. And after 24 hours, when they're supposed to be getting reinforcements, Lamel is down to himself and about 25 other men that can fight. He calls for reinforcements, but there's none available because the Germans are also furiously attacking the town next to the hill as well. D-Day is commonly referred to as the longest day, but according to Lamel, this was by far the longest day of his life, and it made D-Day look like child's play. Which sounds absolutely crazy, but if anybody would know, it's him. At this point, there's no reinforcements on the way. He has a ton of injured men. A ton of men have been killed, and he only has like 25 guys left that can even kind of fight. He knows that he can't keep doing this much longer, if at all. So at this point, Lamel pulls his NCOs aside and asks them what they think about retreating. He figures they can get all the ambulatory men off the hill, and all the men that are too wounded to be moved can be captured by the Germans. He's been fighting them for the past 6 months, and he knows that the Germans are at least going to give them aid and take care of them to some degree.
The best we came up with, sir, is like, fuck it, you know? Fuck it.
It's going to be a shit show no matter what we do.
All right. Fuck it.
Sir, economy class passengers can't enter first class and disturb our VIPs.
Sorry, I just wanted to use the lavatory because the one in economy is broken.
Listen, if you try to make a scene...
What's going on?
Never mind, Mr. Russell. Typical low-powered troublemaker.
Mr. Legend, this man has 100 million power and Rise of Kingdoms. How dare you treat him like that?
Oh, hi.
Every single one of his sergeants is against it, and they are ready to fight to the death about it. So Lamel says, okay, that's what we'll do. And the next day, they do the exact same thing all over again, and somehow they manage to hold on to this hill. That night, after 40 hours of straight combat, the Germans finally let up, and Lamel's able to radio down to the town and say that it's all